good to go, Pete?
Absolutely.
All right. Gus, you're good?
I'm good.
All right. All right. Then welcome to Medfield Select Board meeting tonight, April 2nd, 2024. This meeting will be held in hybrid format. The Select Board will attend in person, and members of the public may attend in person, and we do have an attendance out there. In addition, members of the public who wish to participate via Zoom may do so by one of the following options. They can go to the town website, click on the meetings that are occurring today, go to Select Board meeting, and you can click on the link and it'll bring you on. If you don't have access to a PC and you want to do it via phone, just below that is the information to dial in. And then I always think of people who may be attending a Select Board meeting for the first time remotely. There is an info packet link so that everything that we read tonight, everything we reference is in the info packet and the link is right there. So certainly take the opportunity to bring yourself up to speed. This meeting is going to be recorded, so by all means you can watch it on medfieldtv.com. And Mike is very good about getting it up and running right after we leave. It's also available if you just Google Medfield Select Board, you'll see it on YouTube. We want to take a moment of appreciation for our troops serving around the globe in defense of our country. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is for alteration of premises application by Kingsbury Club Medfield, Inc. to amend their on-premises Section 12 all alcohol beverage license to include 2 self-pouring units, which will be in addition to the restaurant and portable bar.
I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Oh, okay. So Christine, do we want to have Kingsbury Club come up first? Have
If you have a presentation, or do you have any?
All right, the podium is all yours. And then, as we've said many a times, there's a microphone. Bill, is it near you? Okay. You will not hear your voice amplified. It is strictly so that those at home listening, it will jack up the sound. Otherwise, everyone at home will text us here and say they can't hear what's being said. So with that.
Good. If it's helpful, I can go over some of the issues from last meeting. And
why don't you identify yourself for the record?
oh, I'm sorry. Bob Janjigian, Kingsbury Club President. So I can go over some of the items and how we've addressed them, and
That would be great.
might help out.
Excuse me? So this is a self-contained public hearing, so you have to kind of start fresh as if there'd been nothing. It's all within the scope of tonight's hearing.
Okay. Can we kill the fan? Yeah, it's super hard to hear.
So assume they know nothing and take it from there.
Oh, okay. Good to go, or right
Yeah,
now,
you can
or-
start. I'm just having to kill the fan because it's really hard to hear in here.
Oh, okay. So we've installed 2 self-pouring units, one, and there's 6 taps each, beer, wine, one in the pickleball area, and one in the new platform area, which is what they call the hut. And what happens is if someone wants to buy, a drink, they go to the bar and they can purchase a card. They have to show their ID, and let's say they put $50 on the card. Then they go into either the pickleball area or the hut area and place a card on the machine, and they can pick their drink of choice, up to 2, before the card is deactivated, and they have to go back up to the bar and have it reactivated at that point. Since our last meeting, I think it was suggested that we should have these our staff tip certified. So we've got 22 people since that meeting that are now tip certified, and they will be the only ones who would be able to activate or reactivate a card. So that's basically the crux of how the machines work. If you'd like me to go into some of the other issues that we've covered from last meeting, is that enough?
So Mark, do you want everything, so anyone hearing for the first time for public hearing, just to go over all of the regulations?
So that's your initial, how you've installed it, and how you propose to operate it? Is there anything more to the operations?
Yeah, I think a lot of there were issues brought up last time that kind of circle around how we operate it. So we've addressed some of those, and probably 10 points of interest, I think, that we could go over.
Mark, if there's something broadly stated that they should cover as if this was a brand-new application, then I'm good with that.
Right.
But I'm interested in hearing what you did in response to what we talked about. So
Right.
before this is over, we
Right.
need to talk about
Well,
those
you can
issues.
bring that up in the context because technically the process is that an applicant for a license should come to the local license authority for approval prior to installing and operating any
Correct.
kind of expansion. So you have to assume it hasn't been done up till now and go
I
forward.
have no intention of assuming that this hasn't been done up till now. The whole reason, you're absolutely right, that's how it should have happened. It didn't happen that way. Our job is to make sure that it's in good shape now. So the idea, we're assuming nothing, if what you just said was we should assume that nothing has happened up till now, that's,
Because they had no right to it up until whatever happens tonight. And then you can impose whatever reasonable conditions you feel are necessary if you're inclined to grant approval. So whatever you feel you need for information should be gleaned out of this hearing tonight.
so which is exactly what I'm saying. There were things we raised last time. I want the information about what was done in response to that. If there's additional things, Mark, that need to be the full presentation, I'm happy to not have those things that I'm interested in addressed until the full application has been covered. So I'm not arguing if that's your point, is that this is the first public hearing for this license and therefore the members of the public should hear the full thing. Yes, but that's not what happened. We had some stuff that came up in the last meeting, and I'm most interested in knowing how those things are corrected. So I don't think you're saying pretend that didn't happen, but that's my greatest interest, is to know what we're doing to fix the issues that led to the conversation we've already had. So I'm perfectly fine to have a complete application so the public can hear it. But before it's over, I want to hear the stuff that I think you're prepared to come and talk about, that's all.
Correct.
Okay.
So go along those lines.
So I guess Mark, you can guide this. I think the issue is you're presenting an application for a license. Probably you first have to present that as a full-blown, as if it was a brand-new application and a brand-new conversation. And then from there, we can go to the other issues.
Yeah.
Because I think what I'm hearing you say is, if you had come, let's say 4 months ago, before they were, it would be like, it is our intent or our request to put a self-pour in our new warming hut. It is our intent to put a self-pour in our renovated pickleball area. But what we know occurred is that's already in place, it's already active, and now you're coming here tonight. Based on the previous meeting, at the select board meeting, where we were able to ask you some questions and we raised some concerns, and that's what I believe what we're hearing Bob say is that he's now going to address those this evening. Because you can't act like what you'd like to do because you've already done it, and now it's a matter of whether we're going to support that or not.
So I think, Mark, what you're saying is you probably need to provide a full description of what your intention is in having this. As if somebody has tuned into this and didn't hear that prior conversation, all they know is you're applying for a license.
Mm-hmm.
So providing the broad description of what your intent and maybe the rationale behind your intent to start with, then refer to the discussion we've already had and talk about the specific issues.
Right.
I think that works.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we ran into a situation where, when we first started out, a club was 65,000 square feet. We had a restaurant, fitness, tennis. And as we've grown, we've added probably 100,000 square feet to the facility, not expanding the restaurant or anything like that. So we ran into a little issue when we did our latest expansion on how we're going to be able to serve somebody food or drink over in that area. It's, you got to walk 100 yards outside. Is there a way to overcome this problem and make something available without a lot of hassle? And we discovered these machines. So, it was an oversight on our part that we didn't realize that it was an alteration of premises. And I think we had said that on the first meeting. So we had gone through a lot of issues. Board had brought up a lot of really good issues that we thought that helped us go back and address those. So there are 2 freestanding machines in these areas with 6 taps apiece. They serve beer, wine. We're looking into possibly soft drinks and water as well. And it's pretty self-explanatory as far as, how it's operated. You got to be over 21. You get a card pre-approved at the bar. Tip certified person gives it to you. You can have 2 drinks, and then it has to be reactivated. We've got cameras focused solely on those 2 units and in the social areas around it. That's piped into a feed at the front desk that it's right next to the monitor, so they don't even have to move their head to see what's going on over there. So they've got dedicated cameras over on both units. So like I had mentioned, we've got 22 employees now, staff that are tip certified. They're the only people that can activate a card or reactivate a card. So they're 18 and they're tip certified.
Okay.
We had moved the main processor to the restaurant behind the bar as an extra precaution, to make sure that that's the main point of distribution of these cards. Let's see. We added multiple signage to what we already had there. So it's the signage on both units, 21 and above. You also, it mentions where the pour cards are available at the Ice House restaurant, 2 servings maximum. There was some concern over outside alcohol, that there was a situation with outside alcohol. We've added signage for that as well. And for every reservation and confirmation now that a player over in that area gets, there's also a reminder about the no alcohol allowed come in on it, by the participant. So we've tried to cover it with signage, reminders, email reminders.
I saw that.
Yeah, so we're trying to cover all that. It's also on there as far as member misconduct and etiquette, around those same issues. So we addressed it that way with more signage. We've got the ability with the software to program exactly when they come on and off. So if there's any kids programs, camps, or anything in that area, our plan is to shut the machines off. So for the most part, as people have been in the building down there, it's usually 21 and over down there anyway. But if there is any programs or camps or anything involved in that area, they'll be shut off. So there'll be no access to them at all. And that can be done just from the restaurant or a couple other stations we've had that we can do that at.
And so the sign will come up, like I know on Sundays, because you can't activate it until noontime, it says, not available at the moment, however it's phrased. So
Yeah.
that same thing will come up when you see, like, I know I play on Monday afternoons and Wednesday afternoons, and one of those afternoons is definitely a little kids tennis thing, where they use the pickleball courts in 1 and 2 for, I think it's tennis, maybe it's pickleball, but I think it's tennis. And, that coach there has got a dozen little munchkins running around.
Right.
So in theory, when I'm there, if I was to walk by, that's when I would see it closed off, because in courts 1 and 2, you've got 6, 7, and 8-year-olds.
Correct.
Okay,
And I was over there at 10 o'clock today, and I saw the same thing.
okay.
So, I'm double checking that as well, just to make sure that happens. So, and I covered the monitor. I think there was an additional, somewhat related, we were talking about the parking lot last time. So since then, we've been working with our electrician to map out all the lighting, and then also work with Green Light to improve that lighting. And we're also working with the parking lot, the people that do our asphalt and striping and everything. We're gonna be putting in speed bumps, crosswalks, and repainting the arrows to make sure that, you know, people slow down when they come in. There's gonna be a crosswalk right at the front when you come in from the cul-de-sac, which will get people prepared to slow down. Okay, then there'll be 2 or 3 more speed bumps after that point. So, and then we're gonna improve the lighting and, you know, try to cover some of the parking lot issues. So, and I think that pretty much addressed most of the concerns, I believe. So.
Oh, I'm not sure how you want me to do the order here, Christina, Mark, but I know the chief had a chance to go on a field trip with you. So is it appropriate to have the chief come up and speak before
Absolutely.
Gus asks any questions? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. We'll keep your candy there, Bob, in case you have to pop back up.
First of all, I'm wildly embarrassed. I had a coat on earlier and I forgot to transfer my badge from my outdoors garment, so I'm out of uniform. That's not a good thing. Congratulations on the chair
Thank you.
position. So I do want to thank the Kingsbury Club. They did invite us to come over and tour the facility. This is a new kind of endeavor in Massachusetts. And with new endeavors, we would love to have the ABCC kind of rule in and give us some rules and regulations to follow. Unfortunately, they haven't caught up to the technology yet and implemented any rules. So I think from my perspective as a public safety official, I would have 2 concerns. And those concerns would be for any facility, whether it's Bell Forge having an event or the Avenue Restaurant serving alcohol there. And that is overconsumption and underage consumption. I think in terms of overconsumption, the Kingsbury Club has done some pretty positive and proactive things. They are limiting the access cards to 2 pours, regardless of the amount of money that's activated on the card. It will stop at 2 pours, and you do have to return to the bar area where your license is checked, and that is ideally where your tip certified employee is going to make an in-person evaluation. Right, they're gonna observe you as you're walking over. Are you stumbling? Do you appear to be slurring your words? You know, all of the indicators for intoxication, bloodshot eyes, etc. So I think that component of it is being addressed. The component that I have more concern with is the underage consumption. So as just mentioned, there is a distance between the pickleball courts and the bar. And I think originally, and perhaps you've changed this, we looked at one of your main reception areas. You had a system there for the point of sale. I don't know if you've changed that, but there were 2 locations, the bar and then that one.
Correct.
Okay, so there are two potential areas to actually activate the card. It's the distance from that spot to the actual service of the alcohol that a lot can happen in between. You're talking about a card that you no longer, right? I get my card activated, and what happens from that card to the point of self-service is unknown. There's no staffing, there's no monitoring outside of cameras. I can tell you the camera systems that we looked at, one of them was adequate, and one of them was, it failed. I couldn't even see the tap on the camera itself. I don't know if that, okay. So it's just a long place to go. When you see some of these other facilities, and I've talked to some other people who have experience with this, there's typically an attendant in the area. Much like if you were at a large club, there would be bouncers in, there are multiple wait staff, there are bartenders. There's always somebody kind of keeping an eye on things. Restaurants, you have waitresses that are going through, and I believe I used that example when I spoke to the Kingsbury Club. Your waitress comes over, she serves you your drink, an adult at the table. Is there anything stopping you from sliding that drink over to somebody who's underage? No. But the idea is that the waitress is paying attention. That's the component that's missing in this setup, and that's probably where I would say my greatest concern to the board. would be. I expressed to the Kingsbury Club, no one wants to be the bad first test case. This is a foreseeable liability where we know that you have quite a distance from the point of sale to the point of service, with no one in that point of service area kind of monitoring who is then actually pouring the drink and consuming it. So if I had any one concern that I would really want to impress upon the board, that's the one that was kind of the glaring problem for me. And I think a little bit different than what the other, I think 3 places that are doing this type of self-serve tap are experiencing. I think they are having that kind of monitored situation that's absent here. But other than that, the other elements that they've put in place, I do think address the overconsumption. You'd have that person checking every 2 drinks. And ideally, that's what they're supposed to be doing when they watch that person make the point of sale. So,
Okay.
do you have any questions for me?
No, I mean, other than, do you see any remedy? Do you, so, and I completely appreciate where, oh, I should have deferred to you, I'm sorry. I see exactly what you're saying, where we have to go from the Ice House restaurant all the way to one of the self-pours. There's a lot that could happen. Do you see any solution to that potentially?
I think the easiest solution is to have an attendant in the area.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily mean somebody standing there. It can be an attendant who is assisting picking up the courts or doing other maintenance issues. But it is just kind of that watchful eye of somebody walking around that is paying attention. My understanding is that this is not like there's a line of people standing pouring drinks. It's being used sporadically. I'm sure, if it were to continue, some of the sales might increase as people get more familiar with it. But I think that that's the component. If I had a recommendation, it would be that there be an attendant that is monitoring that area. And they can be doing a plethora of other things, but that would have to be one of the duties and responsibilities, and also be a tip certified person.
So I guess, let me make sure I understand. There's 22 people who are tip certified. Is that the restaurant staff? Is that the entire staff of the Kingsbury? Like, who's actually tip certified?
Yeah, that would be throughout the whole building. So it'd be all the managers, it'd be 10 managers, and then additional staff, tennis staff. We've probably got, if I had to guess, 15 staff over at that other building at any one time.
Yeah,
in that area. They're tip certified. We can certainly give them that added responsibility of keeping an eye on there. And like you had mentioned, I'm sure it'll pick up, but we've kind of settled in right now to 5 pours a day. Literally 5 pours a day. So I'm sure it'll pick up, but I think with the staff we have at the moment, we could give them that responsibility to keep an eye in that area.
So I can only go from my experience the day that we went there. The kind of hut area, am I saying that right? The hut area, there was no one in there. So that's an area where alcohol is readily accessible. There was no staff present at the time. Truthfully, I don't know if you had staff in the pickleball courts. I saw people playing, but there was nothing that I saw that identified them as staff. I guess, it's really a risk versus reward issue that I would tell the board to consider when doing this is, is there a risk of overconsumption or underage drinking? Yes, can we mitigate those risks? There's risks at any establishment that serves. Whether the risk versus reward is really there, and can it be appropriately monitored so that we don't have those two things. And then, like I said, it's relatively, it's in its infancy in terms of Massachusetts using this technology. So I'm sure there are going to be other issues that will come to light as other companies, and hopefully not the Kingsbury Club experience.
I remember during your visit, I remembered distinctly when you mentioned that hut area and what potential problem, because it's new, not a lot of people out there, and I got with our management and I said, well, this is a concern. We have to figure out what to do about that. And, one of the suggestions was we close that one down and only open it when there's events or there's someone specifically assigned to that area. Pickleball is obviously a lot busier.
Yes.
We have a lot more staff out there. That is still ramping up. I think if it helps, we would be willing to do that, close that one down, open it when there's events.
Oh, you have to convince them, not me.
Yeah, sorry, it was your
We do value our input, though.
Your
You're
good
looking-
point and concern. And it was a good point. And so that is something we could do, have that open when we assign someone to it, when there are events and we know that there's people in that area. So
When does it actually, what's the normal hours that it's functional?
I believe it's 11 to 10 or 9? 9:40. 11 to 9:40. Yeah.
So let me just give you kind of an apples to apples comparison. The issue with this is that you have a facility that's mixed use, right? So all ages. Unlike a bar where we know everybody entering is 21. Belforge had proposed an event this year, a large-scale kind of hip-hop event. They anticipated having alcohol served, but the target audience was going to be 18 and over. My concern to them is very similar to the one that I'm expressing here, which is how do we know people aren't going to get served and then bring the alcohol into the venue where there's less monitoring? And one of the things we did was establish almost like a beer garden, where you went, you got served, you were confined to an area, and once you exited that area, you could not bring your alcohol. So this is not new to them, and I don't want the Kingsbury Club to feel as though they're somehow being separated. This is kind of my general philosophy, is we really need to be cautious of mixed-use places and then monitoring that alcohol is actually being consumed by who purchased it. So, I'm sure there's a solution to be found, but that's my caution right now.
The Noon Hill Grill or various restaurants that serve alcohol, I'm only reacting because when we do like public events like runs, we've had a noontime start. I'm just curious, I never really thought much about it, but the place, and I can totally see people going for lunch early, wanting a glass of wine, so I'm not categorically, but do we have a rule for like a Noon Hill Grill or an Avenue? When
They're
do they-
11 a.m.
11 a.m., so this is consistent with what they would do, and if anything, probably you're cutting off the end of the night a little bit sooner, which probably makes sense. The other parallel that comes to mind for me is I'm a terrible golfer, but once a year I have some friends that on a weekend we go up to New Hampshire, and the golf course is up in New Hampshire. There's always somebody in a golf cart with a cooler, and somewhere around the 12th hole, when you're starting to build up a thirst, it's very easy to get a beer out on the golf course.
They do that in Massachusetts too, just in case you're looking for
Okay.
golf in Massachusetts.
Well, so part what I'm getting at is part of me is this is not a bar you're running, this is a health club you're running. And people do come and they play sports, and it's understandable at the end of a good game, might be thirsty if you're an adult, and you might actually appreciate a beer. So the context of what we're talking about here seems to me a little bit different than just simply a bar that's open from 11 in the morning. So that piece, I'm trying to calibrate that a little bit, just because I don't know that the people that show up at 11 o'clock in the morning after a pickleball game are necessarily the ones that are going to try to bang 12 beers down by 3 o'clock and stumble out of the place.
Well, it's true, and we never looked at it as, this big potential moneymaker. It was more of a convenience.
Right.
And
So I do have a couple questions around the mechanics, though. So there's 22 people that are tip certified. Oddly enough, my question wasn't, is that enough? I was actually saying, if you have everybody in the place tip certified, is there anybody in the place that actually says, my job is to be thinking about how this whole thing is running? Because if the person who's cleaning up the tennis court, you're tip certified, so we're covered only if they see if they sense a responsibility or an obligation to actually enforce that. It might almost be better to have fewer people tip certified that are kind of the official posse members around how alcohol is consumed.
It's supposed to be people serving or supervising service, that's who it's focused on.
Right, and so it sounded like when we started talking about, just so long as somebody's there, I don't even know, that person needs to be tip certified as long as they understand part of their job is to watch to make sure things are going on. So that's part of why I asked you how many. If I heard you right, you can go to the bar to get the card turned down, or you can go to reception, which I assume is the front desk?
Yes, if that person at reception is trained.
But why is that an important thing for people at the front desk to be able to do it, rather than just say, look, if you want 2 more beers, go the extra 50 feet to the bar. There's a bartender who's there, who's looking at whether the person coming in, as opposed to the person who's processing memberships, handing out towels,
Right.
maybe looking at the video.
Well, unfortunately, our bar we're not open for lunch, so we don't open till 4 o'clock in the restaurant.
So from
So
11 to 4, the only place you can reload the card, get the card turned on, is the front desk.
Yeah, 11 to 3, I would say, in that.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think it's important to note that of these 22, most of them are half of them almost are managers, so they perform manager on duty shifts. So if there's a manager on duty, they are part of the manager is monitoring the club and keeping an eye out for these sorts of things. If it happens to be on a time when the restaurant would be closed, the manager on duty could evaluate the scenario, assess, or sell a card.
Point, having those 10 people be tip certified, so if anything goes wrong, it's the managers that are accountable, as opposed to
Right.
the other 12 people who work at the club and have tip certification. If they're the ones that are, in other words, if this all, just for a second, if the taps are turned on, people are playing pickleball, they're in the lounge area, they're drinking beer, and to tell you the point you raised before, and somebody in there, because once that becomes a drinking place, it's not inconceivable for somebody to throw a couple of cans of beer in their bag, because we're all drinking here. When something goes wrong, who's held accountable for that?
I'm sorry, when something goes wrong.
This is, right now, as things work, the issue we have, you're concerned, you raised the concern about overconsumption. I don't know that I'm too worried about that. Underage drinking I am, when there's a 22-year-old kid back from college who had a friend that he was on the track team with that was 3 years behind him, and they're playing pickleball. I would see that as being a more likely circumstance, whether it's that he went got the two drinks, or whether the kid brought a can of beer in with his bag. So I'm saying, if that event occurs in one of these 2 areas that, and maybe one of them it wouldn't, because you're going to control it differently, but if that event occurs in that area, who on the Kingsbury staff is held accountable for not making sure that doesn't happen? There's a legal issue, but I'm not worried about the legal issue. I'm coming at this from a management standpoint. Who actually is the one that's accountable for allowing that kind of a thing to occur in the areas where the taps are?
The manager is overseeing the facility at that time if they're the only ones that happens to be there.
So you would go after the manager for failing to do an adequate job of overseeing?
I would go after. Oh, as far as me assessing how we handled the particular situation? Yes, I would talk to my manager on duty.
A different way. I think you're coming here to convince us that your plan for how to operate this and manage it is something we should be comfortable with, and we should issue a license. And I'm asking a simple question: when something goes wrong, who's held accountable on the staff for not, in other words, if something goes wrong, it's because somebody, either you're not set up to manage it properly, because it still leaves open the possibility that something goes wrong, or you haven't left that possibility open, but if something goes wrong, somebody's accountable for it. And I'm trying to understand how that would work.
I understand. I think I understand what you're saying. We would treat it very similarly. Any incident that would go awry, whether it be an injury or the scenario that you're painting forward, where the line staff or somebody were to see this or be a part of this incident or witness an incident and manage it, they would reach out to the manager on duty. They would then assess the scenario and act accordingly. Whether that is, again, if it's an injury, a bag of ice, or call an ambulance, or if it's a scenario where someone is breaking the law and we need to address that member and or call the police. It would work up the line like most incidents.
So if a 19-year-old kid comes to play pickleball with a 22-year-old college grad that he's friends with, and a member of your staff sees the 19-year-old kid pull a can of beer out of his bag, how does that work?
If a staff witnessed that, they would let the department head know that would be nearest them or the manager on duty, and we would assess it accordingly.
Okay. I know you talk about signage. I think you have emails, so you're sending a message. It sounds like you're sending a message out to the members. Look, let's do this properly. Here's the rules. What happens if a member just doesn't if they break the rule? What happens?
Well, the signage, at that point, their membership is in jeopardy. So we would not allow them to be a member anymore.
Okay.
If I could interject for 1 second, is something, just as you're talking about this, my brain started thinking in a slightly different way. Another concern is because most of what we know with alcohol, right, is restaurants, bars, places where it's traditionally being served. This does bring another unique element that I just thought of, which is you have members coming in with water bottles and other containers that they're bringing in for themselves. How are we controlling, or how are you controlling the fact that the alcohol is being poured into a readily identifiable container and then not being removed from the facility? Because obviously we don't allow alcohol to be transported off premises. So that's just another element as you're talking, kind of started floating through my head about what are the measures to stop somebody from filling up a Yeti or a Stanley container.
I would think it would be more likely they would fill the Yeti up before they come to the club rather than pay for the drinks and then carry it out of the club, but that I would think.
Well, they would be limited on the doors, and as far as bringing it in, I think all clubs deal with that potential problem. Even if we didn't serve alcohol at all, we would probably be dealing with that problem. And, you know, I think a lot of the problems that you've mentioned, many restaurant owners deal with the same thing, even in a confined area. I mean, you can have a 21-year-old go back with a beer, pour half of it into his buddies behind a partition. You wouldn't know it.
I think the difference here is that this is largely an unsupervised area. You know, if you go to a bar and somebody buys you a beer and you're underage and they pour something, well, there's a bit of risk there that somebody in the bar is going to see you do it. When you have a place that's, I'll say isolated, but I don't mean remotely isolated, a place where drinking is occurring, there's sporadic direct oversight by that's not a criticism, it's just people have things to do. So if they're seeing it, it's more just by happenstance that they happen to be there. That is inviting abuse in the sense that somebody knows this is a pretty safe place to go. Nobody's here except for us, and we can tell when the person comes through the door. So we just and go from there. And I'm not trying to give you a hard time. This is a concept that I understand why as a member of a club, I would see how I would like to be able to do this, and I wouldn't be to get soused. It would just be a beer after a good workout. It's not always a bad idea. So I'm not against it in that sense, but there's an open-endedness to this that is different.
I think part of that is with the expansiveness of the facility. So let's say those machines weren't there and we had our temporary bar out there, which we've rolled out a number of occasions out there. It's still 65,000 square feet, so someone could walk away with 2 drinks and you run into the same potential problem.
So the temporary bar is a self-serve as well?
No.
No, but that person can only, if they've got a line of 4 people, they can't watch the person who's now, 100 yards away.
I see. Okay.
So they have the same problem. So what I think we've relied on is the training of our staff and managers to keep an eye on all of these areas and to make sure that they have, not only do we have the cameras, but we've got any staff in the area keep an eye on it. Even if it was without these machines, someone bought 2 drinks over at the bar, I think our current club license allows them to go anywhere in the club with a drink in their hand, club license. So you could potentially run into the same problem. And since 2008, we haven't had an incident. So I think we've trained our people pretty good to.
The safeguard in place there, though, and I'm not trying to disagree with you that so many things that can go wrong from the point of sale. But the difference with what you're describing by having a remote bar set up for an event is that your point of service is still taking place between your employee and the customer, the consumer. Clearly, no one can be responsible for every act that takes place within it. But this is the component that's different, is that the actual point of service is not in front of anyone.
You're right, right.
It adds another element to it.
Yeah.
And I think between our demographic, which in that area is 95% 21 and over, and training of our staff and multiple staff in that area, I think that's why we got to a comfort level with putting them in. But I obviously see your concerns and everyone's concerns. So,
Have you had any communication with your liquor liability insurer as to the specific activity and whether there is coverage under your liquor liability policy for this?
not specifically, no. I could certainly do that.
Friendly legal advice would be, sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
I'll do that.
And then there's two locations. The hut, I think, is the one you're talking about not necessarily having on other than for special events. Is the hut, when we were talking last time, I think you said that one of the taps is fairly easy to see and the other one is, so I assume the hut's the one that's
So
harder
the
to
hut is the
see.
equivalent of walking in the door here, and you look outside, and the taps are over you're
Okay.
looking to the left, on the other side of the refrigerator and sink.
Okay,
So I think the chief, when you were there, you saw that there's no direct line of sight there. So you have to be in that room.
Correct.
Looking over your shoulder. So Bob, I appreciate your remarks of, if that's something you guys consider shutting down, except for events that are being, I think there must have been an event there maybe 2 nights ago on a Saturday night, because when I went in on
Right.
Sunday morning, you could tell somebody had set up for food and whatever. I get the benefit there. The pickleball one is extremely visible because it's where everyone has to come in while you're waiting for your courts to open up. Can I add a couple of things here?
oh yeah, I think I've run out of questions at this point.
Well, so it is the pickleball area that would be a concern. And like, I know friends of mine, when they knew this conversation was coming up, they're like, okay, one of the things that concerns them, and this would be helpful if you had somebody monitoring the area, roaming the area, is people have left bears behind. So and they said, it happened on an afternoon when the little kids were over there playing tennis. And they're like, okay, that would be a concern, where no one is monitoring. Like, where if you're at a restaurant and there's a bear on the table and no one's around, that bear is picked up and gone, right? It doesn't sit there. I don't see anybody right now having that responsibility to say, if there's a bear just sitting there, if it's there for too long, it's like luggage in an airport, it's gone, right? So that raised a red flag that, again, the monitoring, I mean, Chief, things that you were bringing up, where we just have to be concerned without a warm body being there and relying on a camera. I don't know how responsive you can genuinely be, because if it's, especially from 11 to 4, your club is successful, right? Which is a compliment to you. There's a lot of people coming and going, and you've got the tennis crowd that uses the tennis for tournaments or their leagues all throughout the mornings. So there's a lot of activity. They have their coffee, their donuts, everything's there. It's asking a lot of a person who's on the other side of the property to be responsible for not only what's going on right there in that lobby where the person responsible for doing the cards would be, but also trying to monitor what's going on in the other area. It definitely raises a concern in some of the things that you've brought up, Chief. I do compliment you on the email. It's funny, it was just a matter of a week or two after our meeting. I read it, I was like, okay, you're not quite as strong as Bob Kraft, you're not just revoking it, you're putting it up for consideration. But I can't stress enough, if everything goes tonight, I think you hate to say it, but it's the first few make an example of, because there is this laissez-faire that, you think of the nights where you're crowded. You've got, women on Wednesday, men on Thursday, then you do the 5 to 9 on Fridays. That general area is pretty well populated. To your point, Bob, if you're, when you're serving bears, yes, people can move around. But if I'm in your shoes, that is when I'm hyper-focused. Because if there's going to be something that goes sideways, it's going to be on one of those nights where it's a lot of people. It's when the taps would be advantageous to have there, but that's when the biggest concern of liability and injury comes into play. And then even when your tournaments, you have so many people, again, being wildly successful, you get them in from Vermont, Connecticut, New Hampshire, upstate New York. When you have those weekends where it starts on, a Friday and runs through Sunday afternoon, there's a lot of people coming in. They're not familiar with the rules, and that puts you at jeopardy, and it puts the residents in Medfield at jeopardy with people not being aware. So as I sit here tonight, I applaud that you're trying to make the changes, but I want to see something buttoned up that says, you know what, we hear what you're saying, and the idea of shutting down the warming hut, I love that, and then turning it on when you're having events, so you haven't wasted that investment. But how do we make sure the most crowded area and the ones where I appreciate you saying that most people are 21 and older, but there's definitely a younger crowd, especially right now. You've got spring break, you've got kids getting ready to come home from college. They come back and play. I know I've played with my friends' kids that are from Fairfield and this neck of the woods. They come home for the weekend. So you have that 19-year-old that's drinking at college, now they're home. It puts a lot of onus. And if there's somebody there monitoring that, like I don't know if the RFD card, if you can actually have a picture on it, so that when you go all the way to the other side of your property and you re-up the card, you come back, and if there is somebody monitoring, they about to go to the tap, say, hey, can I take just a quick look at your card? So it's not the 19-year-old that didn't go over and get the card re-upped. It's the gentleman or the lady that went to get the card re-upped, and they're the one that's drinking it, not handing the card off. Because once that card gets refilled, anyone can take it from there, right? And I know that's a technology.
They'd have to show their ID, yeah.
They have to show their ID to get it refilled, but once they walk, whether they go behind the tennis courts, which I know we're not supposed to do, or they cut through the parking lot, they can hand that to anybody.
Oh, okay, I see what you
Right? I
mean.
mean, it's just a white card.
It can get left on a table and still have activations available to it. It could be left in a locker room. That's kind of what I'm saying, is nothing nefarious in the sense of somebody intentionally handing it off
Right.
to encourage underage drinking, but just I don't want to call it a crime of opportunity, but essentially the opportunities that present themselves just as a matter of business. You put a card down, oh, I had one drink, I don't care, there's a second one, I'm visiting and I'm never going to come back here and use this, and I leave it on the table. Mm-hmm. Again, I think there are solutions to be had. It's just a matter of finding the ones that protect you and obviously protect the residents.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, even if there's an attendant there, and a 21-year-old goes up to it, would the expectation be to card him again?
Maybe.
You have to.
I mean, if they're TAP certified, right, that's only protecting your club and the residents of Medfield. That if you're busting people's chops, I don't think you're going to bust mine. I'm definitely old enough, right? But if it's that age where you want to discourage people saying, you know what, go to Kingsbury on a Friday night, you can hang out, you say you're watching your parents, you're watching whomever play in the pickleball. Yeah, well, you're especially right now, you want to be on it like white on rice, because you don't want it to be a destination where things can happen and not good things, right? Because you have a great reputation, you've done wonderful things to the club, you do so much for the community. I love seeing all the different ages coming and going, but it genuinely concerns me. I don't want to see somebody hurt when we could get ahead of it.
And from a regulatory standpoint, just confined to that, service of a minor is strict liability. There's virtually no excuses. The statute provides what's permissible identification, and beyond that, if minor gets served, you're liable to the alcohol authorities.
Absolutely.
Is the card only, you said I guess you could put money on the card and then you can get 2 drinks. Are the cards good for buying anything other than?
No.
The one purpose the card's
That's the
there
one
for. So you
purpose,
can't put money on the card and go to the restaurant
Right.
and buy a sandwich or anything. It's just strictly
Right.
for that. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, and I'm sure that these are the same issues that, if you go to their website, there's probably 100 of these machines across the country. I'm sure they've all dealt with some of the same issues,
Well, the ones I saw, actually, before I saw yours active, I saw the ones in Foxborough over at Patriots Place, the axes, wild axes.
Yeah.
And so something that the chief said earlier triggered with me is where they have it.
Wild axes in Foxborough?
Yeah, you can throw it. It's pretty good. I didn't get a bullseye. I came close.
Okay.
So there's a large display right on the main wall, and at that facility, the only open bar is upstairs, but yet the axe throwing's downstairs. but it is very wide open. And everyone they are super safe because people are throwing axes. Your server, they have people all around. They're all identifiable, so you know who a staff member is. So if anyone's wandering over that's underage, there are enough eyeballs. And I'm sure if Foxborough issued that license, I'm sure they're watching it very, very carefully, being both the police department as well as the establishment themselves. Because
But they're not rechecking at the machine.
they made it, but here's the deal. It's right there. It's in the middle. If you're on this wall throwing axes, and then there's a wall that's perpendicular to it, and then there's more, it's right there. So everybody coming and going from the kitchen, monitoring how people are doing, throwing the axes, it's there. So you're not going to get the likelihood of a 19-year-old or a younger. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think. Even if you go to get a drink upstairs, I can't remember if they gave you a band or not. But they were being very cautious.
Yeah, I just think of my own friends when I was that age, and I could certainly get a pass off of a card.
Oh, yeah.
And no one would know.
Well, and that's why, honestly, the conversation we had at the club one night after playing was, if it's just a white card sitting on the countertop. That's actually fun. I was talking to a member before I came here tonight, and the parents are gone for the weekend. If it's got 2 drinks left on it, no one's going to ask for it. If you go to reload it, that's where the challenge comes into play. So it's just that gap of how do we try to make it as safe as possible, knowing that there's no attendee there, right? If there was somebody there that we just double check, and anyone who wants for safety first, they're not going to care if they have to show their ID again. They're going to care if it's a fake ID. They're going to care if they just got caught because the person handed the card off to them in the hallway. And too bad for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they would have to just know to carry their ID if they put everything away in a locker. If they're going to be playing or go to the gym or whatever, they'd have to know that they potentially could be rechecked. They'd have to have their ID on them.
So let me ask, any more questions, Michelle?
No, ma'am.
You're good?
Just a couple.
Okay.
First question is, approving this license, now you talked about, well, the hut will keep closed only for special events, but if we approve the license, I assume it's not with a whole set of specific operational commitments on your part. We either are gonna approve this license, if you decide to use the hut the way.
We can do
We
condition.
can put whatever conditions we want, so if you represent
Right.
that, we can do that.
Put them right in. We actually have issued licenses to other licensees, particular situations where there are stated conditions in the license.
Okay. So this is, I'm listening to our conversation here, and I think you're trying to figure out how to make this thing work and be acceptable. And a lot of what we're talking about here, as I really listen to it, it actually isn't what we think needs to be done for this town. It's actually issues that you have to worry about operating your business in a way that minimizes the liability of how you do things. It's the more, Mark's point about checking with your insurer, all that stuff, I'm going, yeah, we're worried about certain things. I think the only thing I personally worried about is that 19-year-old kid who sits there and looks and says, okay, nobody's over here. I bet you if we catch the person at the front desk when they're busy processing 5 people, they're not really gonna look that closely, so we can figure out how to finesse that. And I'm just a 19-year-old kid looking for how to, looking for the easy rules. Where's the break in the fence? I'm not necessarily going to get drunk. I'm just looking for, and I can speak from experience on this point. It's just you look for where the openings in the fence are, and that's where you go into the garden. You don't necessarily have to plow through it through the gate. So that's actually a bigger concern I have than overconsumption by full-grown adults, or even, I can't picture too many 5 or 6-year-olds getting a tennis lesson there, sitting there saying, let me try this beer. They won't like it. So that's actually the bigger issue, is what concerns me is around that. And even that ultimately probably kicks back on you guys around the liabilities that come from an event that leads to an unfortunate event. It's actually worse. Your exposure is worse than anything that we have here. So I found myself testing. It's like, this is a whole lot of work to get these unsupervised taps. It's like, why not put a cooler at the front desk and let people buy 2 beers from the person at the front desk?
Right.
How is that harder than what you're actually doing? I'm not trying to
I
get you
think
to do it, but
I know
it's a hypothetical. I'm saying, man, If I was running this, I would sit there and say, why don't we just let the people at the front desk sell beers at the front desk
Right.
after 11 in the morning until 4 when they have to go into the bar. I don't need to buy, I mean, you already bought them, but I don't need to buy this stuff.
Right.
I don't need all this operational.
Option B.
Yeah.
But I don't, you know, I think you still run into some of the same problems. You know, someone walks away with 2 beers, and
But maybe not. So here's where I come out. First off, I think I'm sympathetic to the idea of having the open. I'm willing to try this, and Eileen, you're the one who's there, so I'm trusting. You've brought up a number of issues that I think are, even if we weren't bringing them up, you guys should be worried. The empty beer sitting on the table, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Whether we call it out or not.
yeah.
I'm willing to go along with this as the single tap, with the idea that that's trusting you to actually manage it in a way. I understand the attraction of it, although if you're only selling 5 beers, it's probably right now a lot of work for not necessarily a lot of return yet, at least.
Right.
So I'm willing to let that have that much rope, as long as you're willing to let them have that much rope. But I really do, in this discussion, I actually come away saying you got a lot more things to worry about around this than our particular concerns about whether or not to grant a license.
Well, I agree. I think from these 2 meetings, it's really forced us to look at a lot of these angles and tighten up our ship and operation. And so I personally take it as constructive criticism, and I think that's why we've acted on everything that's come up. And if there's more, we'll continue to act on it, because we want it to be safe, obviously, for all the points you've mentioned. So,
So let me ask a question about the cameras and the monitors. Did I hear you say, Bob, that you've improved the monitors since the chief was there last?
yes. Yeah, one of the cameras was not a great angle, so we put one direct. That was on the pickleball one.
Okay.
So, and then I think we've improved or redone the social areas as well. So that even though the hut isn't, there's one on the unit itself, there's also one in the whole social area.
Okay.
So if someone were to walk away and walk in that area, we would still have eyes on that.
So would you be opposed to potentially putting another camera in the pickleball area in that recreational stretch where the only place you really can mingle? So that if you've got one looking down at the taps, you also have one that would just see the movement. And this might also, if you sit and watch the video, you might catch some of the people that on a Friday bring in their high noons. You don't see the high noons because it's in a cup, because it's the same cups people are drinking out of. I mean, it's kind of like back in the college days, right? If you were smart and you had a keg in your room, you didn't leave solo cups everywhere, right? You just had, your Bud cans, and solo cups would raise a red flag. So if you bring in cans that you don't sell or shouldn't have there, that's a major red flag.
Can we show that?
You've got one in the social area, right?
Yeah, well, this one, the one we installed is directly over. I'm sorry, you want me to talk in a minute?
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one we installed is directly over the system.
Okay.
And so it gets the system and it looks straight out.
So if a concern came up and someone wanted to, how long do you keep the tape for? Or the
No,
digital
it's
file?
a month.
A month, okay,
Every time I add a new camera, I lose a little bit of time. So it's roughly a month.
okay.
Probably a little less now that I got it.
So you're seeing the face that is going for the handle to activate the tap?
Yeah, it's directly behind on the wall, up above, behind the taps.
Okay. And then do you have one at the other end that watches what's going on from the other angle? So you're getting basically both angles is what I'm trying
It
to get
shoots
at.
directly out. So look, if you're looking at the social area a long ways, it looks from the taps would be right at the bottom of the screen and then just looks straight out
So
to
it's
like
a
where
single
those-
camera. that
to where the
looks
couches
across.
and stuff are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it's like 100.
And then you got the 2 on the ends.
Okay.
And I do have to say that's in response to our concerns that we raised when we did the walkthrough, so I appreciate that you took that into consideration, so.
And then your outside warming hut is there one there today that would watch the activity where the Adirondack chairs and the fire pit are? So again, I think of my brother down in New Seabury, like leaving the cooler handy just on the other side of the fence of his pool. All of his buddies know they can grab a beer and they go to tee off on the 17th.
There's 3 out there.
Okay.
So there's one specifically in the hut angled, so you get the whole inside area with the pour station as the center point.
Okay.
And then there's one under the outside patio that gets the covered patio and fire pit area.
Okay, great.
And then there's another one around the other corner that gets more of the rocking chairs and the courts themselves.
Okay,
And those areas, yeah.
okay. All right.
I'm willing to give it a try.
And so do I want to give it a try. I want to, what I was asking tonight is, like, I'm trying to think of all the conditionals, and I know we've addressed some of them. I just don't, if we close the hearing, we can't do the conditionals unless maybe we come back to you and it's just a friendly, hey, this is what we're hearing, any way you can do it. I don't think it would prevent the license at that point, but I think at the end of the day, we're only doing this to keep everybody safe, right? As I've said many a times, you guys have a great establishment and fantastic employees, and you are putting safety first. It's just now you bring alcohol into play, and it raises a red flag. So.
Well, and we've always had a great relationship with the town. Many of our owners live in the town. I lived in the town for 10 years. There's a lot of ties. We obviously want to do what's best in the town's interest and make everybody happy and do as much as we can to that end. So
I would recommend that they continue to monitor the ABCC to see if any new regulations come out concerning it.
Okay.
Like I said, it is relatively new technology, but it is coming as we see. So I do expect some rules and regulations to be promulgated in regard to this. So I'd say, be sure that you're keeping up to date on this particular technology and the changes that are there, and we're happy to work with you.
yeah, they'd be
to
welcome.
give you
I
that
mean, the more that we don't have to come up with ourselves,
Exactly.
So am I hearing you say, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you would be more in tune right now to have warm bodies walking around, especially at those peak times, right? When I'd even say in one of your next emails, it's the old, you hear at the airport, see something, say something. If a member is seeing something that they know is putting members at risk, whether they're 12 or 22 or 82, say something, right? Just you don't have to have a confrontation with that individual, but you can go to the front desk. You can reach out to one of the managers and just say, hey, this is what's going on. You've got the videotape. You can go look at it. But if that type of activity can occur, and we just make all the members aware that that's how proactive we're all trying to be, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we could do something. We'd come up with the wording, but in some fashion to have the membership, any assistance they could do to help us keep it as a safe environment. In that way, I think we could come up with something like that. And then also stay on the training of the people who are going to be in that area for as far as staff and employees, knowing they're going to have to be a little more diligent to make sure we can satisfy.
As I mentioned before, and I know, Gus, you kind of reiterated it stronger, actually have it be a duty and responsibility.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Instead of kind of just everybody doing it, like you're working
This
here
is
today,
part of
and one
your-
of your responsibilities is.
That happens.
Yeah.
They know that. Does.
Yeah, I want to just circle back as to enforcement. You got the issue of the police as the enforcement arm of the local licensing authority, but the ABCC also has its own enforcement people, and they just go where they want and do what they want. So that's a heads up to you too, because they can just come in, and the first time you know they're there is when they find somebody actually violating the statute.
And they are in town at least twice a year.
Well, and I have to believe this is unfortunate, but fortunate for you, because you're one of the few places right now that has these self-pouring taps. They're going to monitor, right, to see how on top of things you are. So I know we have a lot on the plate tonight, so I do want to. I agree with what you're saying. I want to support this. What I don't understand is how do we put the conditions? Is it something that we present?
I would at least, because of the time frame we're talking about,
Yeah.
I would at least state the major conditions as part of the motion.
Okay.
And then administration will ensure that they get properly documented.
Okay.
At the very least, they're in the minutes.
Okay.
So one of those major conditions I think we're talking about is that you would continue to have the one tap by the pickleball be sort of open within the hours that you've got specified. That's an open tap that people could use, except that if there were kids using the facility, then it would be off limits. The other tap would only be used for special events that are actually particularly scheduled. And
In the
can I
woman hat
assume
room.
that that would also be an event that would be monitored in the sense that you would expect that someone from the staff would be actually on that site, not necessarily running the tap, but basically that's
Yeah.
not just who happens to be going through the. that if it's a
Kind of
special event,
assigned
there's
to
somebody
monitor.
there that's,
Yeah, assigned to monitor,
okay.
is what I was,
Okay,
yeah.
that's the biggest, condition I can see. Some of the other stuff around communications, I think those are all good things to do, but I don't know that we were quite as precise on exactly what you have to do there, other than, you need to do the things that get people to comply with this, because if that's a problem, then it's obviously open for us to revisit the whole thing about whether this is a good idea or not.
Just for my clarification, are you suggesting that the tap that is located in the hut only be turned on for special events?
I was not trying to twist anybody's arm, but I think that's what you were looking at doing. And given that this is sort of an experiment on all of our part, if that in fact is something that's acceptable to you guys and that makes sense, yes, I would say that. But it wasn't me trying to box you in. It was that you sort of mentioned it, and it seemed like that would be helpful, because that seemed to be the tap that's the least visible.
Right, and our thought was either a special event or staff person assigned to watch.
Right.
To watch that.
So
tap.
yes.
To watch in the room or to watch at the other side of the campus?
No, in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, so as long as we had someone, I guess they kind of put them together. So usually there would be a staff person in there anyway.
Okay.
So if we have a special event, we could have someone assigned to monitor that station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say, again, it's kind of what you just talked about with communication. It's just, while the taps are open, just make sure somebody going by with the Kingsbury sweatshirt is just walking through, so that people are seeing that it's not just somebody sitting on the other side of the campus watching the monitor.
Right.
And out of curiosity, the person that's at the desk coming into the pickleball and basketball area, do they have any access to the cameras? No, so it's all on the other side of the...
Yeah, typically because the person on the other side is usually an adult or of a higher level that experience that we've trained to kind of monitor a little bit more.
Okay.
So we don't have the check stations or any of that. We didn't put any of that there.
Okay.
We wanted to keep it all over closer to
Where all the offices are.
where all the offices are, the managers are, as close to the restaurant, bartenders, things like that.
And the coaches that are, and you've done quite a bit of hiring with the pickleball staff, the paddleball staff. Are they aware, or will they be made aware of this discussion and how they're being paid to teach people how to play pickleball for an hour, but their eyes should also be just making sure that there's no jeopardy with anybody?
Yes, and that was part of going in and getting the tip certifications.
Okay.
They actually came to us and said that they kind of wanted to get involved in that and be kind of part of the solution on this.
Okay.
So we're really excited about their kind of willingness to really get involved.
Okay.
Having said that, I do have one quick question regarding the kids program.
Sorry. You know you have a good voice.
Not right now. I'm like too much screaming at a baseball game. There are times when we maybe have a small kids lesson, 4 or 5 kids overseen by a pro on court, say 1 or 12, where they're brought in by the pro, they leave with the pro to go see their parents. Okay. Is it my understanding that the board wants this system, they're concerned and they want this system closed off then? Or those kinds of things that are organized by a pro, an employee, and the kids are brought in and they leave and the parents are sitting on the other side of the glass watching? Is that something you guys feel comfortable with, knowing that that's kind of supervised by parents really and a pro, and then the adults that are over on courts, the other 8 courts or 9 courts? Would you be okay if those systems were available to them under that scenario? I just want to make sure we're covering those kind of little quirky.
I'll defer to you, because you're supposed to go before me.
Well, I'll give you the first answer, and then Eileen can. Eileen, you've got experience with the club, so I'm actually relying on you for some of this. But I thought when we talked about that was more like an exclusive, when there's little kids that are exclusively in the area, that was sort of the picture I had of what we were talking about. So if you just got little kids, you don't want adults wandering in and out getting beers while the kids are using the area. So to your point, if the kids are on one court and there's a bunch of adults on other courts, no, that's not what I thought.
Organized youth or child program.
Yeah, if it was something that was exclusive, so that's the short answer to what I think you asked. The cagier answer that is of concern to me as a parent, which is not me speaking as a select board member, but I think should be of concern to you with members who are parents of children, is I'm sensitive to not having all social environments that kids get exposed to involve some form of rather permissive, ready access to alcohol starting at noontime on a weekday. That has more to do, from my standpoint, with what parents who might be members of your club do or don't want in terms of what their kids are exposed to when they're at the club. I don't think we're doing anybody a favor teaching 8-year-old kids that once you get to be 21, then after you play a round of pickleball, it's time to bang down a beer. When they get 17, they probably have at least a certain amount of judgment to know the difference between just seeing an adult do something and I want to do that too when I grow up. That's actually not, I think, our purview as the select board members. I think that's got to do with what kind of a club you have, what kind of club the adults that have kids want to be members of. That's a judgment call you all have to make, in my view.
Yeah, no, I support what you were just saying about if it's the smaller, like the 4 kids, and you know the parents are right on the bleachers on the other side of the glass, that would not mean that you would have to shut off the taps. But if it's the larger ones where there's 12 of them running around, because it's kind of almost a camp, whether it's school break and you're using the courts, which I have seen, that's when I would not want. It's like when we say to Gene, if you're going to do a road race up at Belforge, you don't need to have beer at 10 o'clock when it's over. Can you at least wait until noontime? That would be the same thing I'd be asking for.
That's exactly what we had in mind when you run in larger groups, summer times, camps, things like that. The only times we run tennis is because it's little kids and because they can use the smaller courts. It helps alleviate the stress of only the 4 tennis courts. And they are only on courts 1 and 12, which is at the very front. And I think it's worth noting that the kids come through different doors and have different access during that time. So the exposure from that is truly at a minimum, just addressing your concerns from a parent standpoint.
We can assume that you're not going to come in for a floating tiki bar in the pool before the summer. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I might join the club.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm good with that if you're good with that.
I'm good with that. Hopefully,
I just want to say,
So you
this
need
is
to
new
take
for
a
everybody.
vote. Close the
including
hearing
us.
and take
So
a
we'd love
vote.
to continue to be your partner with this. And if you're seeing problems, then come to us and let's find a solution before it becomes an issue. Because like I said, there's not a lot for us to go on and we don't have a lot of regulations with this. So I'd rather forge that as a partnership with you than have something happen and have to deal with it afterwards, so.
Yeah, if you hear anything then along the regulation horizon.
Absolutely, but like I said, I appreciate that you took our feedback and made those changes, so.
so do I have a motion?
Right, sure. This will be subject to editing, Mark, if you have anything you want to say. But I move that we approve the amendment of the Kingsbury Club's on-premise Section 12 all alcoholic beverages license to include 2 self-pouring units, one of which will be allowed to operate on an ongoing basis, the other reserved for special events.
Or when staffed,
Or be staffed?
or when staffed. When specifically staffed.
Okay.
One of which to operate under, on a daily basis, the other of which to be reserved for special events while being staffed, in addition to the restaurant and portable bar, subject to any provisions of the ABCC that subsequently come out that place further restrictions on this license, and subject to a continuing indication that your management of exposure, of enforcement for underage drinking, over drinking, or being open when large groups of young children are using the facility is managed properly, and meaning we don't get complaints.
And may I suggest, as to the pickleball, that tip train staff regularly monitor when it's in use.
Which I think is, so yeah, so at all times when the either tap is open, that it be monitored by tip-trained staff members, but that monitoring obviously could include the cameras, so it's not physically present other than for the second tap, that's special events.
Okay.
That
Second?
survive, period. That's the end of the motion. Okay,
I second that.
second?
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
okay.
Thank you.
I think I'm up next anyway, so.
Well, I was gonna say, just in the interest of time, since we're starting the warrant hearing in 5 minutes, I think if we could take the SOI this evening and take the chief, and we'll move everything else, we'll either have a meeting on Friday or on Tuesday, we can move the rest of the warrant till then.
Okay. Chief looks
Chief's up.
shorter.
So, number 3?
Let's go to number 3.
All right, so, Police Chief Michelle Gregg to request a vote to amend the effective date of the appointment of William Christofili
Christopherly, yes.
from March 22nd to March 26th, 2024.
Yeah, so just a matter of housekeeping, we had done a conditional offer of employment based on the vote at the elections on Monday. We were able to do a straight hire of Officer Christopherly. I'd just like to amend his date to reflect the 26th.
Ready? No questions? Ready? Yep, I move that we amend the effective date for the appointment of William Christopherly from March 22nd to March 26th,
Yes, sir.
2024.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And you can take a little public note if you'd like. I know even though we're running late, I still think what your officers were doing out front here on 109 in front of the townhouse was amendable, and if you want to communicate why they were doing it and what's going on this month.
Yes, thank you. So April is Distracted Driver Awareness Month, specifically April 1st through the 8th. Our officers are uptown, have been at peak hours of travel today, enforcing that, giving some warnings, some enforcement, and otherwise educating. So cautionary to anybody driving through town. We always expect people to follow the law, but if this is an added incentive for them, but all of our staff were up there today. You might have seen them on your way in, and you will absolutely see them this week. So.
They're also monitoring the stoplight at South and 109 and the block that you turn right on James Ave.
Yes, particularly one of our complaints was the turn from north onto 109, that people weren't coming to a complete stop, so that's the other area that they're checking. So we have cars stationed in front, one at Starbucks and one slightly farther up.
Great, super. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chief, thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I knew we're running late, but I wanted everyone to know that.
And then number 2.
All right, so Dr. Morrison and Mike Weber to discuss and request a vote on submission of the statement of interest for the Dale Street School.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Mike is not here, but Tim Knight, the chair of the school committee, is here.
Excellent, thank you.
So I come before you, as I have in the past, to ask you to support me in submitting the SOI. What typically happens is the school committee will vote to have me submit the SOI, then you folks do that, if you would do tonight, and then I sign off on it as well. We submit it to MSBA for their due diligence. So their due diligence period begins April 12th when the deadline is, and it goes all summer, and they'll do their recommendation at the December 2024 meeting. Okay. So I know that was in your packet. Happy to answer any questions about it. And I know that if you do choose to vote this evening, there is that long motion that you have to make. So,
You just fortunately print it out for us. I know what to read.
No questions. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, so thank you for doing it.
I would concur with Pete that this, reading the SOI, talking about buildings that are now 80 years old, is compelling. I guess it was only 75 or so years old when we did it last time around. I'm not sure if Mike ever talked to you. He and I had we had an hour and a half conversation. So the question that I have, which does not have to do with this SOI specifically, was around what the long-term intentions were of the school building committee. We as a select board have no role in actually swaying what that decision is. So the reason I asked the question wasn't to lobby for a particular answer, but what I did raise was concerns around if this is the last year we intend to go try to get the MSBA funding, that's fine. I'd like to know that, because the only issue is I wouldn't want to have another, well, let's go on the merry-go-round for another round in November, just because that's what we didn't decide to do anything else. If that's what we're doing, that's great. If the intent is to stick with MSBA for X number of years, my only issue was, and I'll support that too, if that's what the decision is. My only issue was, if we are going to do that, I want to hear what the long-term capital requirements are to maintain the Dale Street School during the period. When the vote first failed in the special town meeting, at the very first Board of Selectmen meeting we had, my first question was, for planning purposes, how many years should we assume we're going to be using the Dale Street School? Not to prognosticate about when the MSBA will approve, but so that we understand how to project capital investments that are going to be required to maintain Dale Street School. So my concern is that I would not want to see us get hit with unplanned capital. Just, the roof fell in this week, so cancel the whole capital program because this is an emergency. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm happy to support whichever direction the building code and the schools want to go. I mean, the building committee and the schools want to go. But if we're riding the merry-go-round for a while, I want a good picture of what the capital requirements are to keep Dale Street running for a reasonable period.
And I think that's fair, guys. So we've invested capital the last 3 or 4 years since the failed vote. So we've been targeting classrooms that need ceiling repairs. We've done asbestos remediation and tile repair throughout the entire building. So it is in our five-year plan for capital to just keep doing that to address those classrooms, because we know that there are kids that are going through there still, and there are teachers that are still working in there. So we want to make sure it's a good environment for them. So we continue to do that. But I think if we're in a situation where we're going to stick with MSBA long-term, I'm not going to speak for the building committee, I'm not sure what their plan is there, then we would probably have to do a much more detailed plan beyond 5 years for that building.
So right now, so Mike and I talked, at least have some sense of where he's coming from. I gather probably you and the building committee have not talked about what's the longer-term plan. Okay.
No, I think there's a feeling, and again, I'm not going to speak for the building committee, but there seem to be an urgency where folks want to get some things going, and I think that's what, this is one part of it, applying for this, but there is still 8 months between then and now, and, what can we do in those times? I think that's what, I know Mike has the agenda for tomorrow night, looking at the feasibility study that was done prior, looking at some of the key components of that. What can we use going forward? What do we need to redo? Those kinds of things. So I think we're using the time wisely. We're not going to just sit on our hands for 8 months, but I think there's definitely a feeling in the current building committee to keep moving.
And Tim, the school committee hasn't opined one way or the other about what you'd like to see.
Well, we support the SOI.
You get the mic.
No, I know that. I'm talking about the time period in terms of, are we at a year from now, will we be at the fork in the road where either we're the MSBA program or we're gonna build our own school, or are we gonna do what we did last time with the Dale Street School, and however long it takes, we're gonna wait? Or I'm not pushing, I'm just asking, has the school committee come out with an opinion on that one way or the other at this point?
No, right now, we are supporting the SOI. We want to put our best foot forward with that. There is discussions around kicking off a feasibility study near term that allows us to continue to advance. In advance, we don't, in case we don't get awarded. I don't know if that's the term MSBA uses. But we're
Reinvited,
still
right?
moving
Readmitted.
forward right now.
Right.
So, but we haven't,
So-
you know, I
so-
think we need to have some of the output of that
Okay.
feasibility study.
So whatever the answers were that you gave me tonight wouldn't have changed the fact that I'm prepared to approve the SOI. So the immediate issue of approving the SOI is fine. I want to get on the table, though, that I would actually like, I think it would be good for, it's not what I like, I don't have any kids in the system. I think it would be valuable for the town to kind of have a real hard discussion, and by town, I mean building committee, school committee, and superintendent, school department, a serious discussion about, so what is our strategy? If we get admitted to the MSBA this year, then it's a moot point. If we don't get admitted, what does that look like? And I'd kind of like to know the answer to that at this half of the year, rather than find something something doesn't happen, if that's the case, in November, and then we're kind of looking around going, what do we do next? So that's where I'm coming from. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
my sense is the school building committee is going to be working toward that, for sure.
Okay. So I'm good.
Okay. All right, in the spirit of moving things along here, we have a motion?
Let's see, resolved, having convened in an open meeting on 4/2/2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Select Board of Medfield, Massachusetts, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated 3/21/2024 for the Dale Street School located at 45 Adams Street, Medfield, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority category for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. Replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Medfield to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Medfield to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
That is so precisely stated, Gus, that I'm happy to second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Against?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I could have sworn I said the same thing twice in that.
You didn't type it, you just read it. Okay.
All right.
Oh, you know what I didn't do? I did not close the public hearing
We'll take care of it. You can close it now.
for, close the public hearing for Kingsbury?
I move that we close the public hearing for Kingsbury Club.
Did you want to? No.
Can't,
kidding.
you're
I'm
recused.
recused.
Oh, that's right, okay, second. All in favor? Get that. Aye. All right.
Okay. If you want to adjourn your meeting, I'm sorry, stay your meeting. Yep, keep your meeting. Yep.
Stay.
You're going to move in the audience. They're going to
Oh,
take the
I like that.
stage. You're going to end this Zoom and then join the warrant hearing, but you are posted because the warrant hearing, you may speak. You're going to sit in the audience for the warrant hearing.
admit Bob Salini? Sure. I think he's in the other room. Is he gonna admit, Bob? Okay. Okay. Is, is Bob? Is Bob on? You ready to go? Okay, good evening, everyone. It's great to see everybody here this evening. Sorry we took a little extra few minutes getting organized. Today's April 2nd, 2024, and the time is about 7:45. We'd like to call the warrant hearing to order, and we'll make a roll call. So for the members here present, just say your name and present.
Ed Vizala, present.
Jill Rafter, present.
Brent Nelson, present.
Steve Callahan, present.
Pete Saladino, present.
Emily McCain, present.
Deb Cardiser, present.
Peter Michelson, present.
And Bob Sliney, if you can.
Bob Sliney, participating remotely.
Okay, great. Does the select board need to call your meeting to order? Okay, so you're all set, okay. All right, so we need a motion to open the hearing.
I move we open the hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I do a roll call.
Aye.
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. So we are opening the warrant hearing pursuant to Section 2-9 of the Town Charter. The proposed town warrant has been voted and signed by the Select Board, posted to the town's website, and made available to residents. A public notice of this warrant hearing has been made to the residents of Medfield. The warrant committee will now hold a hearing on the proposed town warrant. This hearing is being recorded, and a replay of this recording will be made available on the town's website. This is our agenda for the hearing. There'll be some brief comments by me, the presentation on the proposed operating budget and fiscal status. We will review the warrant articles in groupings and take public input on questions and comments, and then we will close the hearing. For those not familiar with us, the Warrant Committee is a 9-member volunteer committee of Medfield residents appointed by the town moderator to advise town residents on the town meeting warrant. Warrant Committee's 2 main functions are to study the financial affairs, budgets, capital expenditures, and other investments, and to evaluate warrant articles presented to us from town administration, the select board, the planning board, and citizens' petitions when necessary. It's our responsibility in regularly scheduled public meetings to openly deliberate fiscal matters such as the operating and capital budgets, as well as provide a public forum for presentation and deliberation with the sponsors of each article. In addition, members spend considerable time and effort reviewing budget material for each department and meeting with the superintendent of schools, the town administrator, assistant town administrator, the school director of finance and operations, and various department heads. We research articles presented for vote at town meeting, provide an informed judgment with a recommendation for passage or dismissal. On behalf of the Warrant Committee, I'd like to personally express our sincere gratitude to all the department heads and committees who spent time with us over the last 6 months as we undertook our due diligence efforts, many of whom are here in the room this evening. Since the 2023 town meeting, the Warrant Committee has held 12 regularly scheduled public meetings to openly discuss the budget process, the operating budgets of the town, municipal, and school departments, other financial matters, and town warrant articles. Copies of the meeting materials, minutes, and recordings are available on the Warrant Committee website. Okay, so we'll go into so as we look at the fiscal update this year on finances, it's important to note that our budget must address multiple areas of town finance. We first look at our operating budget, our main area of providing services to our community through the school and municipal budgets. That's the area most familiar to the town. We need to ensure that we're properly maintaining our town facilities and providing appropriate and efficient equipment for all departments to use, particularly our public safety and public works departments. We also need to address our reserve accounts, making sure we have appropriate funding to protect the town in case of an emergency or recession, and planning for future exempt debt or unpredictable operating costs. Reserves are an important component of our credit rating, and we also need to address our long-term liabilities. These include our pension and OPEB liabilities. And as always, we try to address all those items in relation to our tax bill as we are financed through a real estate tax bill. It's a tricky balancing act to handle all of these areas. Over the past years, the select board, the school committee, finance team, and warrant committee have done a good job of ensuring that we are presenting comprehensive budgets that address all of these areas. So the key takeaways for the proposed FY25 budget, first and most importantly, the operating budget is balanced without the need for a Prop 2.5 override. Secondly, as you will see, we are proposing prudent uses of free cash, focusing on many important priorities through reserves and stabilization funds. And as always, we continue our disciplined approach to achieving yearly operating budgets that are sustainable within the Prop 2.5 framework. This includes following our financial policies on ensuring that operating expenditures are covered by current operating revenues and not non-recurring revenue sources. And lastly, staying disciplined on the use of free cash, limited to one-time appropriations and funding of our long-term OPEB liability. Future budget challenges. So as we look forward to future budgets, there's some challenges. We see that the forecasted overall expenditures continue to outpace revenue growth. Some relief could come if and when the Medfield State Hospital redevelopment is complete, but significant relief is not really expected until FY 2030, when the pension plan is projected to be fully funded. So we expect future budget years to be more challenging than this fiscal year. The pressure on our operating budgets and taxes will come from the expiration of collective bargaining agreements, including the teachers, that expires at the end of 2026. The town, police, and fire expires at the end of 2025. State aid is also under pressure, as you might have read, and has not kept pace with wage inflation and cost increases. And planning for a new elementary school building project continues and will result in a significant increase to property taxes if ultimately approved by town meeting and voters. So from a big picture perspective, the FY25 budget is essentially a level services budget focused on maintaining existing services. There are additional needs based on requests that were identified and included in the FY25 budget. They are the addition of 3 FTEs for the school department, an additional increase to $459,000 for special education out-of-district transportation expenses. And then the town side, there's an addition of half of a FTE for Parks and Rec Assistant Director.
Excuse me.
Bless you. 3/4 of an FTE for Conservation Commission. And in addition, the police budget has an increase of $246,000 related to the new collective bargaining agreement. And then lastly, the healthcare budget assumes $297,000 savings in the first year from negotiated healthcare, redesign of healthcare plans. There were a number of requests that did not make it into the budget. The school department's amount was $355,000, and on the town side, there was $169,000 of requests that did not make it in. On the revenue side, our revenues are assumed new growth in the budget is $475,000. Local receipts growth is $565,000, and that's made up of primarily 4 areas. The $179,000 for departmental revenue, which is the 2025 is a transfer sticker year, so that's new revenue from that. And there's $109,000 in licenses and permit revenue, and $100,000 growth in the motor vehicle excise tax. All other revenue assumptions growth are consistent with Medfield's history. Looking first at our revenues, you can see the 25 budget is $78 million. The pie chart shows you the components. The main area of property taxes are shown in the blue. It's 73% of our revenue comes from property taxes, and we have a much lower reliance on state aid, as shown by the red color. This is a typical revenue chart for a suburban community in Massachusetts. If you saw the same chart for a large city, you would see a much higher reliance on state aid. We are very reliant on property tax revenue. It makes it much more challenging to present a balanced, comprehensive budget. Our revenue source is restricted by Prop 2.5 formula, and we always balance services. We must always balance the services we're providing with the impact to our tax bill. This is the Prop 2.5 levy calculation. A lot of people think that Prop 2.5 limits the increase in their tax bill to 2.5% each year. It does not. Prop 2.5 really is just a limit on the total taxes that the town can raise. And this slide shows you how the formula works. It's shown in red. The formula just begins with an amount from the prior year, and then we are allowed to increase it by 2.5%, and then we're allowed to increase that for an estimate of new tax growth and estimates for basically new development in town. Continuing with the formula, we then add the Municipal Building Stabilization Fund, and that increases by 2.5% each year. And this was an override that was approved at the 2008 town meeting. And continuing down, we have a total that's called the levy limit within Prop 2.5. And then continuing, the formula then allows us to add to that any principal and interest for exempt debt outside of Prop 2.5. And then you get to an amount called the maximum levy or the levy capacity. This is the maximum amount that can be taxed under the formula. And as you see, for the last 2 years, we have budgeted to essentially tax the maximum amount under the formula. Our actual tax receipts have been less due to some unexpected increases in state aid and new growth in local receipts. But the budget plan for 2025 is to tax the maximum levy limit. Let's take a look at the Medfield single-family tax bill. And as you can see, going back to 2019, the average tax bill increased that year at almost 9%. It was due to a large number of overrides that were approved at the 2018 town meeting, and there hasn't been an operational override since 2018. We've managed to stay within the Prop 2.5 framework and had smaller increases each year. As for the proposed 25 balanced budget, the increase is forecasted to be 3.3% to the average tax bill, and that's based upon a single-family average assessed value of $903,000, which results in an average tax bill of $13,659. And then finally, on the far right part of this slide, you can see Medfield's ranking in the state average tax bill. This is one you don't want to be at the top of. Historically, we were in the low 20s or high teens, and then in fiscal 19, because of all the overrides that were approved, we went up in the rankings to number 15 in the state. And now we've moved back down to a normal ranking of 21. The next slide shows the history of the net state aid in terms of dollars on the left axis and the percentage change each year on the right axis. The net state aid in the governor's budget is a percentage change of 3.8% in FY25 from a 2.8% change in fiscal 2024, and that's due in part from lower state assessments that are offset against the state receipts. The revenue from local receipts is $4.9 million. It's an increase of 13.1%. The budget for departmental revenue, as we mentioned earlier, is increased by $179,000. Due to the transfer station sticker year. There's $169,000 increase in interest income due to continued higher interest rate environment. You know, as interest rates go up, it's bad for the average person, but it happens to be good for the town because we invest that money and get more income. And then lastly, there's a $100,000 motor vehicle excise tax. So on the comparative operating budget, for fiscal 2025, the operating budget is $72.6 million, or an increase of 3.6% from fiscal 2024. And you can see that the actual increase before debt service is 4%. Also, we have implemented a new budget approach this year for the school and municipal operating budgets. The Warrant Committee provided upfront budget guidance that suggested limits to their budget increases. And the total pool of available funds was limited to essentially remaining revenue after paying a shared fixed cost. And the available funds were then split 75% to the schools and 25% to the municipal side. So the ending percentage increases in both those categories are very close, 4.7, 4.8. In terms of free cash, this is the proposed use of free cash. At July 1st to 2023, we had a very large amount of free cash, $5.1 million. And the various proposals are listed here, and they'll also be listed out in the warrant. This leaves us with an unused free cash balance of 1.8 million, which is in compliance with our 2.5% financial policy test. And as I mentioned earlier, this 2025 budget is prepared in accordance with our financial policies that are designed so we don't cover operating expenditures with non-recurring revenue sources. Our credit review, there's no articles in the warrant this year for new debt borrowings, but town finance is always monitoring how our comprehensive budget decisions might impact our credit rating. Our last rating was in 2021 by Moody's, just AA. A good rating helps us issue debt at a lower rate, and the last bond sale was in fiscal 2022 or September 2021, when, as you all remember, it was a very favorable borrowing environment. The rate on those 10 to 20-year bonds was 1.46. Today, it's obviously a lot worse. And then next, we turn to our reserves. Here you can see a history of our reserves as a percentage of operating revenue after subsequent spending of free cash. Coming out of the COVID years, the town has managed to rebuild the general stabilization fund so that there's now reserves to help with any future economic downturn or emergency. And this year, we have 2 new articles to increase our reserves: the School Tax Impact Mitigation Stabilization Fund and a Special Education Reserve Fund. If approved, our reserve as a percentage of operating revenue would be 10%, bringing our projected 2025 total reserve balances to approximately 7.3 million. And the buildup of these reserves is a great story, and it's very important to maintaining our town's strong credit rating. Now, we'll proceed through each of the articles in groupings, and we'll ask for public input from anyone. And all questions and comments that anyone has should be addressed to the chair. When you're recognized, state your name and address, and then we'll first take, I guess, questions and comments from people in the room here, and then Frank, if you could monitor the Zoom chat room. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you should enter your name and address in the chat function, and we will promote you to comment or ask a question. So let's go through this. I'm going to go through this by groupings, and we'll stop at each one. So the first Article 1, Annual Town Reports. Human Resource Articles 2 and 3. Article 2 is Elected Official Compensation, and Article 3 is Personnel Administration Plan. Are there any comments or questions on Articles 1 through 3? Anything on? Okay. All right, we'll go through the financial articles, which are articles, starting with Articles 4 and 5. Article 4 is to dissolve the Opioid Settlement Stabilization Fund. Article 5 is to create Departmental Revolving Fund Account, EV Chargers. Any comments or questions on Articles 4 or 5? Okay. Articles 6 through 9, revolving funds. Article 6 is the creation of the Departmental Revolving Account for Parks and Recreation. Article 7 is to create Departmental Revolving Account Council on Aging. Article 8 is to appropriate funds to Vaccine Revolving Fund. And Article 9 is Annual Revolving Fund Expenditure Limit Authorization. Any questions on Articles 6 through 9? Anything online? No. Okay. Article 10 these special purpose trust and stabilization funds. Articles 10 through 14. Article 10 is cemetery perpetual care trust funds. Article 11 is local PEG access appropriation. Article 12 is Route 27 Dale Street Traffic Mitigation Special Revenue Fund. Article 13 is establish a special education reserve fund. And Article 14 is the establish an elementary school tax mitigation stabilization fund. Are there any questions or comments on Articles 10 through 14? Okay. The municipal building and capital stabilization funds. Article 15 is the transfers to the municipal building capital stabilization fund. Article 16 is the capital projects appropriations, municipal buildings. Article 17 is to appropriate to the capital stabilization fund. And Article 18 is the capital projects appropriations, non-buildings. Any comments or questions on Articles 15 to 18? Yes, Chris, you could come up to the podium, that would be, or use the mic.
Yeah, Chris Potts, 7 Curve Street. Just a very basic question. I had been searching the website for this information, and I seem to remember from the capital budget meeting that the high school was the high school tennis court repairs included in that, in one of the capital budgets, and which one was it, and for how much?
The high school tennis court? Okay. Frank, you want to answer that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $200,000 for the high school courts. And it's the high school court and as well as the retaining wall behind itself.
Did that capital budget expense include any kind of sound mitigation for pickleball?
No.
Okay, all right, thanks. That's it.
I'm not sure there's plans for pickleball either, so
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be able to say yes or no on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions on Articles 15 to 18? Okay. Okay, moving on, Articles 19, these are other financial articles. Article 19 is the elementary school feasibility study funding. Article 20 is prior year bills. Article 21 is the FY 2025 operating budget. Article 24, appropriate funds to the 375th Anniversary Trust Fund. Article 25, appropriate funds to the Economic Vitality Fund. Article 26, appropriation for pond surveys. Article 27, appropriation for maintenance and security at the Medfield State Hospital. And Article 34, free cash. Any comments or questions on these articles 19 to 21, 24 to 27, or 34? Anybody online, Frank? Okay. The water and sewer. The enterprise fund, Article 22, is the FY 2025 Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. Article 23 is to rescind bond authorization for the Mount Nebo Water Tower painting project. Any comments or questions on Article 22 or 23? Okay. And then Articles 28, general Articles 28 to 30. Article 28 is the Town Charter Amendment for moderator term. Article 29 is the Dog Control Bylaw, expanded dog leash requirement, exception for off-leash areas. And Article 30 is to authorize the disposition of town-owned land, the Hinckley North property. Any comments or questions on Articles 28 to 30? Okay. And the zoning articles. Article 31 is the MBTA Community Zoning District. Article 32 is zoning enforcement fees. And Article 33 is to authorize select board name change to the town bylaws. Are there any comments or questions on Articles 31 to 33? Okay. All right. Well, I think we are at the end of our, I'll give one last, any more comments or questions? Last chance? Okay. We're at the end of our hearing then. We will vote to close this hearing and move to our regularly scheduled meeting, where we will continue our deliberations and consider and vote on committee positions for these articles. And these are, those are open to the regular public. So, do I have a motion to close the warrant hearing?
I move to close the warrant hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's go around.
Close it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 And Bob Sliney?
Yes.
Okay. The warrant hearing is closed. I guess we would take a brief 5-minute break to sort of clear out the room, and then we'll resume our warrant committee meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
You mean nobody wants to stay?
Thank you.
Christine?
We're good to go?
Good to go?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Right.
I think we probably need to call ourselves to order again. So, for the warrant committee meeting, so it is April 2nd, 2024, at 8:20. Let's call the warrant committee meeting to order. Ed?
Present. Ed Vizzola, present.
Present. Jill Raptor.
Brett Nelson, present.
Steve Callahan, present.
Pete Saladino, present.
Emily McCabe, present.
Deb Cardiser, present.
Peter Michelson, present.
And Bob Sliney? Okay, great. You should have, this is the agenda for today. It's really, we have some minutes, one set of minutes to approve. We'll talk very briefly about the calendar. The select board has generously stayed back for a few minutes. We want to just hear from you on one article, I guess. And then we'll get into the actual financial articles and take votes and talk about those. And there are some reserve fund transfers we have to do before we leave. So, with that, Peter sent around the March 12th minutes for everyone to look at.
Again, my thanks to you and to Emily for helping out with those.
I guess we'd entertain a motion, if everybody had a chance to look at those, to motion to approve. Okay, second?
Second?
Okay.
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, great. The only thing that changed on our calendar is the, we did add.
Quick question, I
Yeah.
apologize for interrupting.
Yeah.
I didn't in the minutes include a link to the video because of the condition of the video.
I would say that's probably not a bad idea.
So my intention is to submit it to Frank as is with no link.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to
yeah, I think
note
that's,
that,
I think
'cause
that's
that
a good
was-
idea, given the shape that it was in.
the video was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on our calendar, we have a meeting on the 9th, a week from today. And then the goal is to hopefully get as many articles voted and the warrant committee reports approved so that the warrant can be printed on the 10th. There may be something that, maybe one or two that we're sort of lagging on, but I did add an April 23rd meeting, only if we need it. So we're going to try as hard as we can to get everything done by next week, but we may not get there, so we may need to come back for the 23rd. Okay, so that's the only change there. Let me just, I guess, stop sharing. I think we can. Select Board. You are next on our agenda. We initially were going to talk to you about two articles, and we've since learned that the citizens petition for the chapel and the infirmary, that the sponsors of that have decided to withdraw that article. So that will save us some time. We don't need to chat about that. It's really, the one article is the disposition of the Hinckley North property, I guess. And yeah. We haven't really chatted at all about it. We just kind of know that it's there, and we'd love to hear what you have to say about it and why it's important, and I don't know who wants to talk. Eileen?
I think I live. I'm the one who probably triggered this. A little bit, and Christine may have more accurate background here on this, but originally, years ago, Mike Sullivan had, I'd had conversations with Mike Sullivan around the Olson property and his thoughts that possibly the Olsons would be willing to sell their property when they moved from their house to the town at an attractive price. Mike had been involved in advocating for the town to purchase the Hinckley property, both Hinckley North and Hinckley South. Purchase price was $1.1 million. But the scheme was you could have that land, you could tie it to the Olson property, and perhaps at the time, I think he was thinking about possibly senior housing could go in up there. So just to understand why the town ever bought that property in the first place, there was a reason for doing it. As things transpired, for one thing, the Olsons didn't move out right away, so that property did not become available. And then the opportunity to put in a 40B project targeted to seniors on Ice House Road is what led to the development of the Bob Borelli's development off of Ice House Road for the 24 housing units that are there, the 40B project. In the course of subdividing that, what's come out of it is the Hinckley property effectively was divided. It has two pieces to it. In the middle of it's divided by wetlands. So the easy answer of being able to develop the entire Hinckley property coming in from the Ice House Road side went away. Couldn't do that. I think, again, I was probably the instigator that when we transferred the land to Bob Borelli for his Ice House Road project, I pushed for us to subdivide that land because I understood that the land that's the Hinckley South, yes, I always get this backwards. The Hinckley North property had developable land on it. At one time I heard potentially 3 housing units, dropped to 2 or maybe 1. But bottom line is there's land, the land that we're talking about here has developable land on it, which means it has some economic value. The Olsons elected not to give us any attractive price to buy the Olson property, so the Olson property is sold to a developer. The developer is putting in Garrison Path as a means of being able to put 2 houses, renovate the Olson property, and then put another house there. The town owns a 40-foot lane to Harding Street from the Hinckley property. 16 feet of that is actually an easement on Russell Morse's property on the corner of Hospital Road and Harding. That 40-foot frontage would provide access to the rear lot, which is the Hinckley property, for a Dover Amendment type of development, which basically means like Habitat for Humanity, something that's not a just commercially developable project. When it was clear that the Garrison Path project was going to be locking up access to the Hinckley property from the back, the town has had some preliminary discussions with the developer who's expressed a willingness to grant us an easement off of Garrison Path to be able to access the Hinckley property. If we could access the Hinckley property that way, we would be able to sell the Hinckley property to a developer, anybody who wants it. There's some people who live around it that would like to see it stay as woodland. Whoever would like that property would be, if we have this article pass, the town would be able to sell that property to someone. The purpose for me bringing this up to start with was to extract the economic value from that property on behalf of the taxpayers. Taxpayers paid $1.1 million for all of that property 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago. And they sold the part that's the Borelli's project for $750,000. So in a time of exploding real estate prices, right now the town is sitting on a deficit of about $350,000 relative to what we bought the property for. I'm just hoping that we can extract some of that through this potential sale. Nobody wants it. Well, then nobody wants it. But if I think you could put a house up there, I think it has economic value. So that's the purpose behind the article. If we don't do that, we don't get the easement, Garrison Path goes in, then what we have is access to a piece of property which we'll only be able to use for a Dover Amendment type thing, which would be affordable housing, a group home, or something like that, which basically says we would be able to give that property away to some probably not-for-profit to use and be happy to have it if that's what we choose to do with it. I just prefer to be set up to be able to sell it and get some money for it.
Seems logical. You support this too?
So I'm pretty agnostic on this, actually. I don't care one way or the other. I'm willing to go along, just to go along, because
Yeah.
it's not important to me to have any authority to do anything with it at the moment. My main interest was, I too worked with the Olsons, asking them if they would consider giving the town selling some of their property to the town, just because I saw it connected to the Council on Aging building, and I thought that there might be some synergies that would flow from that and the fact that the town had the other land. I'm hopeful that the easement from this Garrison path to the town land can be obtained, because that would make the access to that Hinckley North site much better, and be less of a problem in terms of imposing on the neighbors. And plus, where that comes out next to Russell Morris's house it's a very bad sight line it's so close to the corner that, although that intersection is gonna get redone, so it may not be such a problem in the future, but I think that the easement just adds value to the town property, but I have no intention of doing anything with the property myself.
So I do support this article for the reasons that both Pete and Gus referenced. And at the end of the day, if the residents back in roughly 2008, 2009 voted for the town to spend money to buy this land, I feel it's our obligation to at least try to get as much money back for it. And I do, I know there's neighbors that may be upset. They bought it thinking it was just open space and that it wasn't owned by the town, but statement of fact is it is owned by the town. Right. And this easement, I've sat in a variety of the meetings, there have been comments like, well, if you'd have to spend X number of dollars just to blow out some ledge to get to it. And we live in a world where you never know what people are going to spend money on. Like, I can't argue what's right for you is right for me.
Yeah.
But if putting an easement on that property and giving safer access to it is something that this article will enable us to do by selling the land, I think it benefits the town.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Any questions or observations?
Smart thing to do.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah, it just makes sense to me.
What was the primary objection of the neighbors? Was it just they didn't want another house? They can't put a big development back there, right? There's only room for one or two houses at the most.
But there's concern, and so I'm not knocking their concerns of that. There's wildlife, there's deer back there, there's all this. But it was land that was purchased with the intent of trying to drive some revenue back to the town. And if you look at what you just represented for our fiscal 24-25, it really every dollar does count. And so we're just trying to do what's best. No one may take it. Someone may buy it and say, I don't want to do anything with it. But the option, this article enables us to sell it, though. That's
It's just giving you authorization to negotiate with them.
Nothing may ever happen, or someone may come along and say, I'll
And it's still, whatever gets done there has to go through the normal approval process, and the neighbors can weigh in at that point with whatever they do with the property. Yeah.
Just for my information, how big a piece of land is this? 2 acres, 3 acres?
Hold on, we have a map, hold on.
I would guess it's 4 or 5 acres.
4.8 acres, I was just told it was in the article, sorry.
How many?
4.8?
Oh, I was right.
I think at town meeting, it might make sense to have a visual up there so that people can visualize this, because I was, okay.
It'll be in the
trying
warrant,
to picture it in my head. Yeah.
Can't really tell.
Oh, okay.
Nobody has done any land use planning of this at all, so
Yeah.
it may have
In there somewhere.
no
Right.
buildable land at all.
Okay.
There's huge amounts of ledge showing around the properties up there.
Yeah. Well, a creative developer will figure out a way to use it, I'm sure.
because I won't do it, doesn't mean somebody.
Right. Bob, you have any questions or comments?
Sorry, there's no acreage on the map.
No, I'm good. The explanations I thought were fine.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry that things got delayed, but appreciate you staying and. Yeah. But no, appreciate you staying and commenting on that. You're welcome to stay for the rest, but we're going to go through articles you've already been through, but on you know.
Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Great. Well, thank you very much
Thank-
for coming.
thank you.
Thank you.
I assume you guys don't have any really contentious articles that we should be staying just to watch the fight.
I don't think so.
Probably another show.
I'm hoping not. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But okay, so with the time we have left, I thought we would get through as many of these articles as we can. It's the financial articles, which start on Article 4. Now, the structure of this report this year is a little different than prior years. They're actually putting in the vote for the select board and the warrant committee. And so the articles, that's the same, but they're putting in, you know, maybe you remember in past years there was a narrative, and then we would just read it as our warrant committee report.
Right.
We've decided for kind of routine type articles, we're going to label it the warrant committee report in the actual printed warrant, okay? And so, you know, my intent is that we would vote on recommending or not, you know, on the actual article, and then we'd vote on this report too, okay? Because it's going to be labeled the warrant committee report. And this would be, for some of the articles, you know, we have a new moderator this year, and we may not give a report on every article if it's printed in the warrant and it's a simple article. It's up to the moderator to make that decision.
So otherwise, we would read this warrant committee report as our.
Yeah, or we would have a additional report that, you know, that might not get printed. In other words, we may not be able to get printed our report in time by April 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that's the case, it'll just be to be heard. Okay, so the wording of these reports, you know, our committee is associated with them, so we should just make sure we're comfortable with the wording. They were written from the context of, I realize we haven't voted on articles. Okay, we're going to do that tonight. But they were written for fairly routine articles, and they were written from the perspective of a positive majority report. Okay, if we have people who are in a minority, they don't want to be in the majority, then we will add to this what that position is. So we'll actually have, you know, if the vote was, say, 5-4, we would say the four members, you know, have this view about this article, and put it right in the printed warrant. Okay. That's the goal. So, and again, a lot of these are, you know, they're fairly routine articles. The more, I would say the ones that are kind of new are the two dealing with the school, the special ed reserve, and the tax mitigation fund. Those two are kind of new. And we're not going to talk about the general articles tonight. So like dog bylaws and, you know, MBTA zoning and all that stuff. We're just focused on financial articles tonight.
So, assuming.
Everyone understand that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Usually the last sentence is the warrant committee recommends passage.
Yes.
So will that be the last sentence typically?
Well,
you'll have the warrant committee right down, I'm
well,
looking at this
we will-
page here, we'll
well-
have the vote on it.
Well, we'll always be reading a motion, okay?
Right.
So we'll always have a motion that will get read that Christine will have for everybody. That's not in the actual,
Yeah. Okay, I thought this was the motion. No, it's not. This is just the explanation.
yeah.
And then our
And then,
stance on it.
so we won't
This is
be.
our report.
Our report, which we won't be reading, or will be.
In all cases, we probably won't be
We
reading.
probably won't be. Okay, I get you. Then we just read the motion.
You read the motion, and
Right.
that's when we would say warrant committee.
Committee,
And
yeah,
now,
right.
a recommendation is actually gonna be printed here, though. So
Yes.
The actual,
Right.
you know, it's gonna say warrant committee recommends passage 7-2, or unanimous, whatever the vote is. Okay?
Right, capiche, yep.
And if there is any minority, view, we will add it to this language. That's it,
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
That way, somebody attending town meeting will have the information before they go. They'll kind of know, yeah. So, all right. Everybody understand that? Bob, did you follow that? Bob, you still there? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was on mute, sorry. Yep, it makes sense.
Okay, got it.
I do.
Okay. So why don't we go through each article, and we've talked a lot about all these already, so unless there's more questions, we probably should just go through and vote on them, would be my recommendation, okay? Article 4, dissolve the opioid settlement stabilization fund. Do I hear so if somebody could make a motion to recommend passage of that.
Move with regret to approve this, despite having moved to create it just a year ago. But here we go. Yes, move to approve as written.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Let's see.
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. And the warrant committee report, maybe we can do these votes together next time. We'll combine the report with the article, and just vote once, but we probably should vote separately on this warrant committee report unless people have any concerns about it. I would entertain, unless there's any discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve this warrant committee report.
Move to approve the report as written.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, Article 5 is the authorization of the new electric vehicle charging station fund. And the article we've looked at before, the report just talks about the new revolving fund being established under Massachusetts General Laws 53E and a half. Will be credited with the receipts received in connection with the vehicle charging stations located in the municipal parking lot of Janes Ave, Wheelock, and Memorial. And they're gonna fund this with $3,000 from free cash. So I'd entertain a motion on this unless there's any questions.
I move to approve as the
move to-
proposed warrant article.
Move Article 5
Move to approve Article 5.
and
as-
the warrant committee report.
And the warrant committee report.
As written.
What I was going to say.
Okay. Ed?
Second.
Second, okay. You want to vote, Ed?
Yes.
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 Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Article 6 is the authorization for new Parks and Rec revolving fund. We had the Park and Rec people in to talk to us about this. The warrant committee report kind of just mimics what we all heard, which is that it's, they're changing from an old revolver to the newer 53E and a half revolver, and it talks about the benefits of doing that. And that it's going to begin July 1st, 2024, and both funds will be in operation. So I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 6 and the warrant committee report.
I move to accept Article 6 in the warrant committee report as written.
A second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 7, authorization of new Council on Aging revolving funds. This is, we talked about this, when we talked about the Council on Aging. You know, they want to have a revolving fund for their gifts, so this is being set up to deal with a gift account, and that the recommended by the town accountant that they do this. They're going to have $2,000 being transferred into it from free cash. I'd entertain a motion on Article 7 and the warrant committee report.
Motion to approve Article 7 and the warrant committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 8 is to appropriate funds to vaccine revolving fund. And they're gonna take $5,000 from free cash and put it in the revolving fund. And this, Christine updated us on this one. It's basically replenishing that fund from some timing differences on how they pay for their vaccines. So I would entertain a motion on Article 8 to recommend passage and the warrant committee report.
Recommend passage of Article 8 as written, including the warrant committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 9, the annual revolving fund expenditure limit authorization. This is a yearly article, and we've reviewed these changes to these limits. There's a report that talks about, you know, the history here and why we do this. So I would entertain a motion to approve Article 9 and the warrant committee report.
Motion to approve Article 9 as written, including the warrant committee report.
Okay, second?
Second?
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 10, Cemetery Perpetual Care Trust Funds. These are, you know, a list of different people who have bought plots, and the money goes into the Perpetual Care Trust Fund, 50% of the purchase price, and there's a report on this. I would entertain a motion to recommend passage of Article 10 and the warrant committee report.
Move to approve Article 10 and the accompanying warrant committee report as written.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 11, local PEG access appropriation. We have an amount here, $292,272. That's newly added. And the warrant committee, this is a yearly article. The warrant committee report talks about the purpose of it and what it's for. So I would entertain a motion for Article 11 and the warrant committee report.
Move to accept Article 11 and the warrant committee report as written.
Okay, second, all right, Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, Article 12, Route 27 Dale Street Traffic Mitigation Fund. This is to transfer the $98,000 from certified free cash. Again, we've talked about this for the Dale Street Traffic Mitigation Fund. The work was already done, and we're just transferring the money. There is a report on it, and I would entertain a motion to approve Article 12 and the Warrant Committee report.
Motion to approve Article 12 is written in the warrant committee report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Okay, and Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now we get to Article 13, which is the establishment of the Special Education Reserve Fund. And we've talked about this. The report we haven't seen, that's what's here now. So I don't know if people had a chance to take a look at that. I did see, no, it wasn't on this one, I guess it was. So it basically talks about the Mass General Law behind this fund and its purpose. And it's being proposed to address the increase in unpredictable nature of special ed costs. There's going to be a policy on how it's used that will be incorporated into our financial policies. And that policy says that the district must first apply for extraordinary relief from the special education circuit breaker managed by DESE. And then if the circuit breaker funds are denied or otherwise not made available to the town of Medfield, the use of this fund can then be requested by the district, but can only be expended after a majority vote of the school committee and a majority vote of the select board. I know, Ed, you had a question on this wording, right?
Well, my only thought was if DESE only gave you a portion of what you had applied for, and so they didn't give you the total amount that you asked for, do we need to have any wording in there that says that, or is that word available sufficient?
There's that language as or otherwise made not available.
Not available, right. So some
how
of it may be available,
Should we
some
interpret,
not.
how should we interpret that, Christine?
I mean, I would interpret it if you apply for the entire amount and they don't give you the full amount, then that would allow you to apply for this special education reserve fund.
For the difference.
But
For the difference,
Yeah.
right. I would think so, but I didn't know whether we needed
yeah, I
language.
mean, that's how
Yeah, right.
that's why the otherwise made not available, I think covers it, but we can look
Okay.
at it if you wanna add, if you wanna change that.
It's just, so long as we interpret it the way you and I think about it.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a process question though? Like, I mean, aren't we technically voting on the article? Isn't the warrant committee report like not official, or is that not?
Well, we're voting on the article, you're absolutely right on that, to recommend passage of it.
Right.
And then for every article, there is a warrant committee report. Normally, we would give that orally at town meeting. And there would be a narrative in the warrant, but it was never labeled warrant committee report. This is the first year we're labeling it warrant committee
Yeah,
report.
no, I get that, but I guess I mean like, we're more concerned with how the town interprets the report insofar that they'll approve it. It doesn't really matter on how it actually gets implemented because it's not written in the article.
But this
The
is our
rules.
report, so we should be comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just meant like from an
Yeah.
education standpoint, how it gets like actually.
I mean, you know, it may, certain people may not support the article if they're not comfortable with the report, or there's something in the report that they don't like. That's why it's there, and that's why we tell people why we support or don't support the article.
Well, I think another point is in essence that you're gonna take this warrant committee report and you're going to propose that this is included in the financial policy. So
Right.
I think this report will be included in the financial policy.
Uh-huh, okay,
Yeah,
that
so I
helps.
think-
I think
yeah.
you see what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, we can add in, you know, if the circuit breaker funds are denied, partially funded or otherwise made not available, just to clear up any confusion about that.
Yeah.
I think that does it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
So you're going to insert the phrase partially funded?
Partially funded.
Partially funded. Okay, so is there any other comments or questions on this before we vote? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 13 and the Warrant Committee report as amended, as printed with the amendment for, that we just talked about, whatever that was, whatever that language was. Partially funded, yes.
Two words.
I've got you all.
2 words.
All right.
So I guess I move to approve Article 13 and the Warrant Committee report as amended.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, Article 14 is the establishment of an elementary school tax mitigation stabilization fund. So this is the $900,000 amount that they're proposing to take from free cash. And the passage of, the warrant report talks about, the article is to set it up, right, and then fund it. So the article talks about, the report talks about the history behind, a lot of this language came from the memo that I wrote, maybe like a year ago. They're talking about that the passage of a debt exclusion is that's been a core part of our strategy for over a decade. In fact, it's the largest capital project need for the town. And the Select Board School Committee and School Building Committee have stated their support for an elementary school building project and for the need to find ways to reduce the financial burden on residents. Currently, there are no specific stabilization fund or reserve funds dedicated to identifying the elementary school project. The development of a funding plan and support by the School Building Committee and Select Board is a critical next step. The Select Board supports proactive fiscal planning and is serious about reducing the financial burden on residents. The town has the opportunity to establish this fund and continue to identify future transfers from free cash into this new fund beginning in 2025. The goal is to identify an additional $4 to $5 million of future tax relief to be utilized during the first 3 fiscal years after the debt issuance for the new school project. The Select Board will identify additional sources of funding, including, it says the process, it should say the proceeds from existing and future land sales. So that's a typo that I know Christine has. She'll fix that.
I think they have.
It's already fixed here.
Oh, yeah, they updated, okay, great. And then, so that's the article and the report. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
Very much so.
So I would entertain a motion to approve Article 14 and the Warrant Committee report.
Move to approve Article 14 as written and the accompanying Warrant Committee report as well.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 15 is the transfers to the Municipal Building Capital Stabilization Fund. These are basically unexpended appropriations from prior town meeting appropriations, so we didn't spend this money. It's $146,000. So that's what this is, and that the money is being transferred back into the Municipal Stabilization Fund. Fairly straightforward. Entertain a motion on Article 15 and to approve and the Warrant Committee report.
Move to approve Article 15 in the Warrant Committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 16, Capital Projects, Municipal Buildings. So this is a long list of capital projects. You've seen this list a few times. There was one change to it, right, Frank? Was it this one, or was it the other one? Was it
Sorry, your municipal buildings or the?
municipal buildings? Was there change? Was this one changed?
Two changes. We added the tri-county.
Oh, okay.
assessment of $6,000. And then the second change was, that's an annual project, we appropriated the prior article for.
Oh, that's the 49 and the 25,000 at the end, okay.
Yep. And that ties out with the facilities evaluation capital plan.
Okay.
We had appropriated $35,000 for the plan 2 years ago. The scope of that plan has been growing. We had some initial cost estimates, talking to some colleagues, that were gonna be more in the $100,000 ballpark. So we took these two former articles from the 22 and 23 town meeting, which were to bring an owner's project manager in to help us clear out some of the projects. In the meantime, we've been able to hire a project manager for the facilities department, Ben. We'll bring him in to meet you. He's fantastic. He's really moving these projects along, so we don't feel we need the OPM services, so we're moving this into the capital plan.
Okay, great. Okay, are you all set with this? Okay. All right, our representative on the capital budget committee says this is okay. So we are.
Well, if Brent says that, we're good to go.
Entertain a motion for Article 16 to recommend passage and approve the warrant committee report.
Motion to approve Article 16 and the warrant committee report for those long periods.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Well, yes.
Okay, excellent. Still there, Bob, good.
This one Bob cares about.
I know it's 9 o'clock, we're almost to the end here. Can you keep going, is that all right?
Yeah.
A few more minutes? Okay, Article 17, appropriation to the capital stabilization fund. This is the transfer of free cash of $700,000, and again, unexpended prior year articles from the 22 and 23 town meeting for $235,000 and $176,000. I would entertain a motion to approve Article 17 and the warrant committee report.
Move to approve Article 17 in the warrant committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob? Okay. Okay, thank you, Bob. Article 18 is capital budget for non-buildings. Again, this is a long list that we have seen before, and I believe there is a change. Uh-oh, did we do something wrong?
No, we did, we have to make a change to the Parks and Recreation for the Hinkley parking lot paving. We actually had a meeting, 2 capital budget meetings ago, and we are combining 2 projects. We're allowing them to move a project from fiscal year 26 into fiscal year 25. It's not reflected in this table, so you can either vote to approve this pending that change, or if you want to hold this article to the next meeting. I don't have the.
Why don't we hold it? We'll hold it to the next
Yeah, I
one.
don't have the number to give you.
Okay, yeah,
Would
well,
we vote to approve everything except the one change to the park and rec line?
then we gotta come back anyway, so we'll do it next meeting.
Sorry about that.
Remind us though. All right. Okay, so we'll move on to Article 19. And this one, we do not have a warrant committee report on. We are waiting for the school building committee to provide that to us. So I would recommend tonight we just vote on the article and not the warrant committee report, because we don't have it. So this is basically, we've talked about this. We know the amount. It's gonna be $650,000 from free cash. And that will be, when the warrant committee report is written, that will be included in it. But I would entertain a motion to approve Article 19.
Motion to approve Article 19.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, Article 20.
Can I
Yes.
just ask a question?
Yep.
I didn't know that the school building committee was going to be producing a report on this, which is fine, but does Mike Weber know that this is expected of us?
Peter, it's the communications subcommittee, said they wanted to write up a narrative. and provide.
Okay.
Good question. You would think you would know. You're
I
not on the
would-
communications subcommittee though, I guess.
But I guess I'm not on this.
So this is Caroline Casey's.
Yes,
she's-
Caroline and I were working on it together.
Okay, okay.
We'll see that before the next.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have that the next meeting. I think this week it's gonna come in. I think there's a meeting this week. so-
Tomorrow night.
All right.
Tomorrow night, yeah. And then, so Article.
They send all you the Zoom link if you're.
Article 20, prior year bills. Okay, so this is to vote to raise and appropriate money for unpaid bills in prior years. $12,000, and this is a standard article every year. I would entertain a motion to approve Article 20 in the Warrant Committee report.
Move to accept Article 20 as written in the Warrant Committee report.
Second?
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay, we're finally to the operating budget, Article 21. I think we've talked enough about this one. So. I would entertain a motion to approve the FY25 operating budget. Now, I do have a question on this. Sorry. The way this report is written, it says refer to a town website link. Is that what we do every year? Or do we actually have the actual budget in the book?
When the warrant report is printed, the actual budget will be in the warrant report.
Okay,
But we also give people additional information because just that budget report, just the
okay,
operating budget doesn't give enough context to the full fiscal year 25 budget.
got it, okay, all right. Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve Article 21 in the Warrant Committee report.
Move to approve Article 21 is written in the accompanying warrant committee report.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 22, the 2025 Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. This is the direct costs and indirect costs that we charge to those funds. This was reviewed when we looked at the DPW, when Mo was in, we talked about this, so I would entertain a motion to, and they have approved, the Water and Sewer Board has approved this, right? Yeah, so I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 22 and the Warrant Committee report.
Move to approve Article 22 in the Warrant Committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Article 23 is the rescission of a bond authorization for the Mount Nebo Water Tower. This is just doing some housekeeping. There was a bond authorized. They didn't borrow all of it, so they just want to, rescind that authorization for the unborrowed amount. And there's a article for that in a Warrant Committee report. So I'd entertain a motion for Article 23 to approve it in the accompanying Warrant Committee report.
Motion to approve Article 23 is written and the accompanying warrant committee report.
Okay,
Second.
all right, Ed?
Yes.
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 Bob?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're getting there, Article 24 is the appropriation to funds the 375th Anniversary Trust Fund. This is a $15,000 from free cash, fairly straightforward. We're going entertain a motion for Article 24 to approve it and the accompanying Warrant Committee report.
Move to approve Article 24 in the Warrant Committee report.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
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 And Bob? Bob?
He may be on mute.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, Article 25 is to appropriate funds to the Economic Vitality Fund. This is a yearly article, $15,000 that gets appropriated, fairly straightforward. I entertain a motion for Article 25 and the accompanying Warrant Committee report.
Motion to accept Article
Okay.
25 as written, as well as the Warrant Committee report.
Okay, is it second? Okay.
Yes.
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 And Bob?
It's so funny.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we only have two more, guys. We're almost there. Article 26, pond surveys. Now, this was the one, if you remember, Deb Barrow came in and talked to us about. I sent around a write-up, like a 2-page memo that she circulated that gave a little more history and background about her proposal. And this is sort of a summary of what was in that memo, okay? So it's a $20,000 request. The ponds are listed out. They're gonna have a consultant to do the survey, collect some data so that the commission can, you know, make some educated decisions based on what the right treatment plan is and the right technology and water body science. So I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 26 and the accompanying Warrant Committee report.
Motion to approve Article 26 in the Warrant Committee report.
Okay, is there a second? Second?
Second.
Okay. Ed?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes. Question
Okay.
on that? Just a quick question on
Yeah.
that, because I think in the note you sent around, they're spending like $5,000 a year on that. And was that articles? I don't remember there was any articles in the past. In their operating budget, okay.
They have not expended it on pond maintenance in the last several years.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's been in their budget.
This
they
won't
just
be
haven't-
a recurring, this is just the initial assessment.
Right.
And then whatever it takes to remedy the situation will be in the operating
Yeah,
budget.
this is a one-time.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, Article 27, the Medfield State Hospital Maintenance and Security. This is $50,000 from free cash. You know, as we all know, the land disposition agreement has been delayed, so we still have to take care of that property until it closes with Trinity, and that's what this is for. So I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 27 and the accompanying Warrant Committee report.
Motion to approve Article 27 in the Warrant Committee report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Great. We made it through with all the financial articles, guys. That's good. All right. We do have one administrative thing we have to do, which is the transfers. So there are 2 requests for transfers from the reserve fund. And I will let you guys talk about these if you want.
So the first one was for the water bill at the White Lake Cemetery. There was a leak in the irrigation system. The water bills are usually much lower than this, but the water bill for this half of the year was $34,000. This
30,000 for
for
30,484 is what's in here. Is that the right number?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
This is something that unfortunately happens to a lot of residents, so it's only fair. And when that does happen, the water and sewage in the town is unable really to make much financial relief. So it's fair is fair, and the town will be paying this bill. And because
Hey, Steve, if this is gonna be on Zoom, I can't hear it, but just.
Oh, you need to use the microphone. I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
It's on, people at home can hear.
You can't sing.
So, Bob, just for your benefit really quick, there was a irrigation leak at Vine Lake Cemetery, resulting in a water bill of $34,000. We get billed twice a year, just like everyone else in town. Okay. We usually
Hold on, Bob. We're gonna see if you can hear him.
Well, I'm just more concerned that there's people looking at a video later.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
Can you hear? Can you hear Frank now, Bob?
I can.
Okay.
I can hear you, Frank.
Thanks. Thanks, Bob. Okay, so Bob, we got a $34,000 water bill. It still hurts to say the third time. $34,000 water bill at the Vine Lake Cemetery for an irrigation leak. This is something that unfortunately happens to a lot of residents, and when it does, they'll often appeal the bill. But the Water and Sewer Board is, in most cases, unable to grant any financial relief because at that point the water's come through the meter. We've technically used the water, so what's fair is fair, and the town will be paying this bill. Unfortunately, and probably quite obviously, this is a much larger bill than is typically received, so we will be requesting this reserve fund transfer for $34,000 to pay the bill.
Okay, just to be clear, I know you keep saying 34,000. The amount on this sheet is 30,480.
I'm sorry, it's 30,004.
Okay.
Yeah.
30,400.
Money we didn't spend.
I just didn't want you to have to come back. Okay. So we'll take a vote on this then. I'd entertain a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer for the cemetery water and sewer for $30,484.52. You can say so moved if you want.
So ruled.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
$30,484.52.
Okay.
How's that?
All right. Yes. Are you a vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yikes.
There's no way to monitor that? Probably not, right? Systems are not complex yet.
We're working on a new system that hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. Sorry. Oh, okay. We're working on a new system that will allow not only the town but residents to better monitor their usage, and you can set little alarms that say you're over from where you were 3 months ago, or you can set alarms on your on a personal basis.
That'd
But
be very good.
we're still getting
Yeah,
there.
I got the alarm bell, yeah. Okay.
So what's the, so there's another one here for 25,000.
Yes.
What does this bring the reserve fund down to?
I just had it up and I closed it. Sorry. So the current balance is $112,849 and change.
Okay.
So this.
Oh, so that's before deducting this 55,000, I guess. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this leaves you with about 50 or 60,000.
Yeah, 57,850 or so.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to tell us about this 25,000 one?
Sure. So we basically have an ongoing personnel matter that's been going on for a few months now, and expect a legal appeal within the next few weeks. So this amount we expect we haven't been fully billed for this yet. But we expect the bills will continue once we do receive the bills through the remainder of the fiscal year. So this 25,000 would get us through that appeal. Okay. And then there are the original budget amount was expected to help us out with non-union contract negotiations. So anticipating that we'll still be receiving those bills for those separate contracts, this money will also be going towards paying for those legal services. We have a separate labor council that would deal with this type of matters.
This is estimated billable hours. That basically gets us to the end of this
Yes. That's why, it's not as precise as 52 cents. It's
Okay. Any questions on
The number?
25,000 exactly?
Straight?
Yep. Any other questions on that? I'd entertain a motion then to approve the consulting and legal fees transfer from reserve fund of $25,000.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second. All right, Ed?
Yes.
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 And Bob?
Yes.
Okay. I think that gets us to the end of our agenda. Unless you have anything, Christine, you wanted to cover? No, I have nothing else. Okay. All right. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn then, unless there's anything anyone wants to. Anyone else wants to say?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Bob.
Is there a second? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Emily?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
All right.
He's
Motion
gone.
carries. We are adjourned. Good night.
Good night.